Yeah.
We've seen a lot of lopsided games in this college football playoff.
Yeah.
Like, we needed that to kick off 2025. That was awesome. You showed the graphics, the peaks, the valleys, the swoons of that game, and just the way it all came down to the end. As college football fans, that was a great way to start the new year.
That's what it sounded like on ESPN as Texas advances to the semifinal. They will be joined by Ohio State, not Oregon. We'll see what happens in this game later on today. And then they will also be joined by Penn State. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, something I have not been able to say for a month. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got the full version of BK and Ferrario for at least the next couple of days. Happy to be with you guys. I hope you all had a very happy New Year, something that Alex, I know, is thrilled to hear me say here on this very show. Alex, it was a couple of pretty good games, entertaining nonetheless. The big one was Texas versus Arizona State, a game that looked like it was going to get out of hand early. It looked early on the way that the Ohio State versus Oregon game did, and then suddenly Arizona State is back into this thing. We needed that. We absolutely needed at least one great college football playoff game. And to me, Alex, that was the one that represented why we needed to expand the playoff. Maybe we didn't need 12. Maybe we needed 8. But we definitely needed some expansion. Ohio State would not have been in the playoff this year if it was 4 teams. Texas probably wouldn't have been in the playoff this year if it was only 4 teams. Penn State certainly would not have. And Arizona State would not have gotten the national recognition that clearly they deserved for this season. What they did in the Big 12 championship game was pretty damn impressive. And then to back it up with that performance against Texas, really impressive outing for them. What was your biggest takeaway, Alex, from the quarterfinals in the college football playoff?
Man, I mean, if you didn't get that Texas-Arizona State game, oh my gosh, Kirk Herbstreit would still be complaining about wins not mattering anymore. Like, man, thank God.
Did you see him backpedal, by the way?
Did he?
He got community noted on Twitter because he said, I never said that Alabama should have been in the college football playoff. It's like, dude, yes, you did.
There's video of this. You were complaining about wins. But man, if that game doesn't happen, there are so many people complaining about the college football playoffs because Ohio State, Oregon, not competitive, although I thought it was going to be. Penn State, Boise State was a little bit until that field goal kicker missed the opportunity to make it a one-possession game, and then Boise just checked out. But, I mean, the bigger takeaway for me was the Ohio State-Oregon game. Like, all of these were fun. I was listening to the Texas-Arizona State one as we were driving back from Chicago right here on 101 ESPN, T-Bone.
Nice.
But I got home and was able to park my butt right on the couch to watch Ohio State and Oregon. And frankly, I was really upset because I was expecting this to be competitive, a one-possession game going into halftime, and Ohio State blew Oregon out of the water. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that was me underestimating Ohio State, probably because I dislike Will Howard. But, man, Oregon, what the bleep? I thought Oregon was this juggernaut that was going into the college football playoffs and just wipe away the competition. And then Ohio State, once again, realizes they're a good football team and says, hey, we can score 15 touchdowns in this game.
They're the most talented team in the country. That's what we were reminded of yesterday. Now, there are times where that talent was not put on full display. Some of that is on coaching. Some of that is on the players. They have to take accountability for them not living up to their own expectations, especially against Michigan. But I think what we saw in that game against Oregon was, hey, that Michigan game was just weird. Sometimes rivalry games get a little wonky, and that is exactly what happened. Because previously, Ohio State looked like one of the best teams in the country. And then they just, for whatever reason, decided to sleepwalk through their rivalry game this year. But what they showed us against Oregon was always in their range of outcomes. If they could ever live up to the hype. They have some of the best defensive talent of anybody in the country. They've got 2 running backs that are stars. They've got, in my opinion, the best player in college football right now with Jeremiah. That team is really, really good. I had a question about the quarterback. Will Howard was great yesterday. Absolutely fantastic. Looked great from start to finish. It helps when you've got the receiver talent that he has, but guess what? Those guys are out there with him. They can help him. So I was super impressed by that with that one as well, Alex. I thought that was maybe the most surprising results, despite Arizona. I didn't see Arizona State coming.
No.
I thought Texas was going to win and cover the spread, so I thought they were winning by multiple scores.
I was going to text Katie Wu an apology, and then like halftime, I was like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't because she's going to rub that one back in my face.
That was a really impressive outing by them, and I was still more surprised by the outcome in that Ohio State game because, like you, Alex, I had picked Oregon to win the national championship as well.
Yeah, I thought going into this, I remember we had the conversation, BK, after the Big Ten championship game where Oregon gave up a ton of points to Penn State. And I said, look, Oregon to me is by far in a tier on their own. In Tier 1, everybody else is behind them. And I think what you saw was, hey, man, I slept on that Ohio State roster because of the Michigan game. And I had seen them lose to Oregon. So Ohio State clearly is a team that has the ceiling to win the national championship. I don't know who stops them. If they play like that, they're not going to lose. They're going to roll through the semifinal game against Texas, and they'll beat whoever it is that they meet in the college football championship game. But, I mean, you're spot on in terms of it was the year to expand the playoff because it was clear there wasn't a great team. I think yesterday told you, based on what we saw with Arizona State making it competitive against Texas, honestly, for the fact that Boise State hung around with Penn State.
That score was misleading.
Yeah,
that was a really close game, and it got out of hand
missed the
after
field
they had
goal, and Boise
the field
gave
goal
up.
and the penalty.
Yeah.
Those two things ended up leading to them getting based on the score blown out. That was probably closer to like a 10-point game.
Yeah.
That was a fun game, but that field goal felt like Boise was like, we're not coming back in this one. And then you get that breakthrough run, and then game over.
And I think that showed you that this was the perfect year for that expansion.
Agreed.
Because you end up with all these teams like Arizona State could compete with an SEC school in Texas. Oregon and Ohio State, well, clearly there wasn't a best team in the country because the best team in the country typically just rolls right through these things as the 1 seed, and you didn't see that. Ohio State was able to win. I thought that was the most surprising result because I think every game that you play, even in that game, Oregon, Ohio State, there's always, if you play that game 100 times, there's going to be that one outcome where there is the blowout. You can't say that about every game. The most outcomes for that Texas-Arizona State game probably favor Texas winning that by a lot more. And that was more of the rare outcome of Arizona State keeping it competitive. That's why that game was so shocking, because it was that quick snowball effect. Boom, boom, 2 quick hits, down 14-0. Now your game plan has to change. Doesn't go your favor. Ohio State just runs all over you. That was really impressive, and it was on one play. It was, hey, Jeremiah Smith, go. And then Will Howard just perfectly lobs it in. Unbelievable performance.
Who did you guys feel like was the biggest winner? Because I think there's a pretty strong case to be made that it was Ryan Day who went from potentially getting fired after that Michigan game to, now he's one of the best coaches in the country again, who could have seen it coming. Who did you guys feel like was the biggest winner from this round of the college football?
Mine was
thus far. We still got one game to go later on this afternoon.
Mine was the man in glasses at the Fiesta Bowl, James Franklin. God bless that man. You know, he looked like he was sweating a little bit when that kicker walked up to kick the field goal and it was going to be a 1-possession game. And when that doinked off the bar, it was like James Franklin finally dropped to his knees. He's like, thank you, finally. He was never going to get fired. But, man, if Boise State would have makes that a 1-possession game and you're going down to the final seconds of potentially Boise State tying it up, James Franklin, the chance from people trying to get rid of James Franklin would have been loud. So I think he was the biggest winner.
See, I like James Franklin. The problem is I don't know if he was a winner because it was Boise State. I think a lot of Penn State fans are still going to look at it and go, yeah, it was SMU. We knew they weren't a playoff team. Boise, that's a group of 5. Anybody can beat a group of 5 team.
Yeah, there was more risk than reward by winning that game.
I think he's got to win the semifinal matchup before he finally starts to hear some of that cool off. To me, it was Ryan Day. Because Ryan Day, I mean, the expectation, which is ridiculous out of a head coach, is, hey, go win the Big Ten title. Well, there's like 16 teams. That's kind of hard. Okay, we'll beat Michigan. Okay, well, that one should have happened this year.
Yeah, agreed.
And then, by the way, go win the national championship. And, like, you don't hit that trifecta, there's a chance you're fired. And the fact that he's still alive and beat what I thought was the best team in the country, not just pulverized, beat the crap out of them. Yeah, Ryan Day was the biggest winner to me yesterday in the college football playoff.
See, I can't call him a winner because as great as that one was, I still think if he loses in this next matchup or even in the championship game, people are going to be like, Ryan Day, not good enough.
Yeah, I think Ohio State fans have made up their mind on Ryan Day. For better or for
and there's
worse.
No changing it.
But I think nationally, people that are rational can have a normal conversation now about
Ohio
Ryan
State
Day.
fans?
No, right?
Oh.
Ohio State fans very much not rational, which is fair. Like,
what did Nick Saban call them on game day? Gosh, I can't remember. They got to quit whining or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about Ohio State fans?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know who Nick Saban is. I only know Alabama Jones.
He's on your television right now. Ohio State in the first quarter against both Tennessee and Oregon scored 35 points, allowed 0. Gained 438 yards. Again, this is in 2 first quarters, so basically a half of football. 438 yards offensively, allowed 53 combined against Tennessee and Oregon, 2 legitimately good teams. Oregon, I thought coming into this one, was the best team in the country, and they, to T-Bone's point, pulverized them. Absolute domination from start to finish. So for me, if you want to say Ryan Day, totally fair, biggest winner in this one. I think it was Jeremiah Smith, who is now a household name. This was his version of like the Odell Beckham catch his rookie year, where he just like became a national sensation on Monday Night Football with one of the greatest catches we've ever seen. this game, just the totality of the performance, was that for Jeremiah Smith. He has now established himself, I believe, going into next year as the Heisman favorite, which is a hard thing to do, but that's where he's at right now as a wide receiver. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, guys. This guy is not even eligible to enter the NFL draft for 2 more seasons. He's going to go into next year as the biggest star in college football. That says something about where the quarterbacks are right now. I'm not sure you're going to have a star quarterback necessarily returning going into next year, but it also speaks to his talent level. He's had conversation. I saw Dane Brugler, who's one of the best NFL draft insiders in the business. He said yesterday he believes that if Jeremiah Smith was in this year's NFL draft, again, he's a college freshman. He is 18 years old right now. He would be the #1 pick in this year's draft. That is how talented this guy is already. So I'll go with him as my winner from this round.
Bazooka Tooth 75 on the Graveyard Chat over on YouTube says that Cam Scattaboo was the breakout star.
Huge.
And that dude had a massive game. Like, talk about carrying your team on its shoulders. Cam Scattaboo was that guy.
Because he's the Ohtani of running backs. He can not only run, but he can throw a touchdown pass.
Talk to me when he could play defense, too.
I bet he could.
I probably could, too.
That guy,
like it.
Yeah.
That guy's unbelievable. And it sounds like he's going to be like a 3rd or 4th round pick, potentially.
That's going to be one of those guys that gets drafted by a team, and you're like, what the hell, man? Nobody else is going to take him?
Yeah. He's going to end up going to the Eagles.
The Chiefs.
He'll be their backup running back for a couple of years, and then Saquon will get hurt. He'll rush for 1,000 yards.
He'll go to the Chiefs and get a Super Bowl next year, probably.
Another big winner, Quinn Ewers. Brandon, you want to admit that that's finally the better quarterback?
I like how you branded him there. That was great.
He's right. I apologize. I was wrong. Dead ass wrong. I thought Quinn Ewers was the 2nd best quarterback on his own team.
Even in 2025, that sounds great.
I did not think that he had that kind of a performance in him. That 4th and 13 throw, that's a legacy play right there. That's the kind of thing that allows you to have a statue in front of the stadium at the University of Texas. Now, he's still going to have to transfer probably and end up playing elsewhere next year because they've got to get the better quarterback on the field next year. But he did. He had one. It's going to be amazing when he wins the national championship for Texas and they're like, all right, get out of here. Go play for Georgia.
We've got a Manning.
We've got Arch.
We've got a Manning.
But no, in all seriousness, incredibly impressed by his performance yesterday and him changing the play at the line of scrimmage, getting into max protect because he saw the blitz coming and then throwing a rocket right down the middle. That hell of a play by him. So kudos, credit where it's due. Really impressed by Quinn Ewers. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Also impressed by the Illini. We'll get into that later on today. I got to eat a little crow. Thought for sure South Carolina would beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I heard
did not happen.
I heard you.
We'll talk about that and what it means for Brett Bielema as he tries to build this program at Illinois coming up later on this afternoon. We've got Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. He will join us to break down what he saw in the Winter Classic coming up in about 15 minutes. We will do exactly that coming up next, talking about Cam Fowler, the partner that Parayko was missing, next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues to the front. Shoot, they score! Power play goal! Cam Fowler for the St. Louis Blues in game number 1,000 puts the Blues up 1-0. Low glove side. They score! Far point. The shot had eyes. And Cam Fowler's got 2 in the game. It's a 5-1 score. A simple wrister from the left point finds it into the upper corner. And the Blues have put a handful on the Blackhawks. Happy New Year, folks. You can bring out the Zamboni. That's a winner at Wrigley Field. And the St. Louis Blues beat the Blackhawks 6-2 here in the Winter Classic.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. That's what it sounded like on 101 ESPN a couple of days ago as the Blues win 6-2 in the Winter Classic against the Chicago Blackhawks. My God, is that team awful. Not the Blues. Chicago is horrific.
So bad.
Truly, like an all-time bad team. But that's not the story here in St. Louis. The story, of course, is what the Blues were able to do. Cam Fowler, a huge part of that. Played his 1,000th career game, did so in the Winter Classic, scores 2 goals, a memory that he will not soon forget, and the entire team will not soon forget. Alex, he looks like, we'll see, it's very early on, but he looks like the pairing partner we've been looking for Colton Parayko for years. It reminds me a lot of when we first saw Nick Leddy. With the St. Louis Blues. Now, Leddy became a different version of himself, but when he first was traded here, that deadline, we saw him, we're like, oh, yeah, this is what they needed. Just super vanilla, get the puck out of your own end, get it up the ice. Zone exits was like the hot term back then. And it's all of that and then some more. Because he's also got size, and he's helping them on the power play right now. Yeah. Cam Fowler is exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. 7 points in 9 games with the Blues, playing 23 minutes a night. Alex, what have you seen from Cam Fowler, and why is it working so well right now between he and Colton Parayko?
It's because he's got that offensive ability and that two-way style that Colton Parayko plays with. Like, we've talked so much about getting like a stay-at-home defenseman that works with them, and, you know, it can work at times like Ryan Suter, but, man, you've got to have somebody that can play on the same level as Colton Parayko. And what I mean by that is whether you're in the defensive zone or the offensive zone, you got to have somebody who can think like him, knows where to go when Parayko chips in, knows that Parayko's got his back when he chips in. You can actually play a versatile style of hockey. And no disrespect to Ryan Suter, because I think he's been good, but when you're a stay-at-home defenseman playing with Colton Parayko, the cycling of the puck ends once Colton Parayko misses it, and now you're talking about going backwards with it. And to your point of this is the guy that you've been searching for, since Cam Fowler's been acquired, Jacob Chychrun's got 7 points in 9 games, Cam Fowler's got 7 points in 9 games. That, I mean, we talked so much about Jacob Chychrun being the number 1 guy to play with Colton Parayko, and Cam Fowler's sitting at a +6 right now goal differential, which the only guy that's better than that is Cale Makar in that time frame. So I just think what you have found is, one, you found somebody who plays at the same level with Parayko that can calm things down on the ice when things start to get hectic. Some of the simplest plays he makes are in front of the net to just clear a puck before the other team can kind of create more opportunities to score. But second, and what I think is more important, is you found a power play quarterback. Like, I know your power play numbers still don't look great, but this is a guy that is a left shot, which Pavel Buchnevich has talked about how important that is and how Torrey Krug was so good at that. But two, he's just got the offensive instinct. He knows when to chip in. He can take the shot. He gets pucks to the net. So I think this is a fixture for the Blues. And what it does more long-term is you lock down your top 4. Now you don't have to worry about juggling guys around. Does Broberg move up? Does he stay back? Nope. It's Fowler, Parayko, it's Broberg, Falk. There's your top 4 playing 20-plus minutes a night.
At least you have 3 of those locked in. Like Falk, we'll see. We all know kind of what the pluses and the minuses are there. But I think he's better when he's with Broberg. That was part of why they couldn't. Somebody on the text line said, guys, how many people have you declared as the next partner for Colton Parayko? It's a lot, because he's had a lot of different partners over the years. I thought Broberg could potentially be that guy, but I think we saw when they put him up on that top pair, you just lacked any depth.
Yeah, you lose Falk.
You suddenly, Falk becomes a worse version of himself. You don't have a second pair. Your third pair is already like just fine, more or less. So you needed to add somebody into the mix, and Fowler has been that guy, and he's working well with Parayko, which means it's an ideal situation. You get the best out of Parayko because you've got Fowler up there, and now you're getting the best out of Falk because he's with Broberg, who elevates everybody that he plays with. you're just getting the best version of your defense. And honestly, it's helped you with Ryan Suter as well.
Yeah.
He doesn't look as out of place. He's not overexposed. Him on the third pair is a much better situation for everybody involved. He played like 4 minutes of shorthanded time on ice in this game as well. He's helping you out a ton on the penalty kill. So you're just, everything's starting to settle in. This is what I feel like will happen eventually. Whenever they do get that number one winger or that number two center, is everything else kind of falls into place as well with your forwards. But they're starting to get this stuff figured out, and then it just becomes like, all right, now this is our team, let's go.
Yeah.
And I heard after the game, Jim Montgomery had some comments about, okay, I'm really glad we got this one. We needed this one. It was a good performance out of us. They should be celebrating in there. But he also said, I'm glad we've got a couple of days off after this, because once we get back, it is go time. It is time to push toward that Four Nations face-off break that they're going to have, because it's now time to get above 500 and like stay above, meaningfully above 500. That's been the challenge for this team this year. Is they just always seem to stumble right back down to that block.
Yeah, I mean, you're set, and I know people don't like it because you've got the Lindstein and you've got the Adam Juracek. Those guys are a couple of years away. You're set in terms of defense in your top four, at least for the here and now. And that is what you need. Once Snuggerud gets here, once Dvorsky gets here, then you can actually sit and run with it. But you're in desperation mode right now. And I know it seems odd to say, but with the game beginning tomorrow, you've got a stretch of only one set of back-to-backs in the month of January, and I believe there's only 3 games that you play this month that are against the Eastern Conference. So that means about 11 or 12 of the games that you play this month are against Western Conference teams that are sitting above you in the playoffs.
And this weekend, we'll be halfway through the season.
Yeah. You can't afford to go into, we played the audio on Friday, or on Tuesday. You can't afford to go into a losing streak of 3, 4, 5 games. You can't afford to lose games against these Western Conference teams, and Jim Montgomery's right. This was fun. The Winter Classic was awesome. I'm glad they beat Chicago, because you needed to beat Chicago. But now you got to prepare for a couple of Eastern Conference teams, and you've got to string together, at minimum, a 4-game win streak. But you need to build from that, probably 5 or 6 to kind of get into this conversation again.
Before we get to Joey Vitale, I'll ask him this question as well. What was your guys' favorite moment from the Winter Classic? Because for me, it was Braden Shin dropping the gloves.
Yeah.
And then hearing the story afterwards of him being the one that looked across to Foligno and said, let's go ahead and do this. I just... Him meeting that moment and him having that memory of, like, I love that the Blues were up big at the time as well. That played into it, certainly.
Yeah, it could have been dangerous.
But him understanding, hey, this is something that will be cool for hockey. Like, let's go ahead and make this happen. We're at Wrigley. Let's get a good fight between the two captains. I just thought that said a lot. It spoke to who he is as a captain and as a player. He understands the importance of these kinds of games. So that, to me, was the moment that I'll remember the most from this game. Was there anything else that stood out to you, Alex?
I mean, Fowler's goal with that 1,000th NHL game, I thought his celebration was just awesome. He was only like 2 hours away from where he grew up, his hometown.
That's so cool.
And when he scored it, like, go back and watch the highlight. Like, he does the one-leg stand, but he just stares down the crowd and cheers. That was a really awesome moment for me. But, yeah, I mean, you can't beat that Braden Shen fight. Like, Curbs, Joey, and I had a front-row view. We were on the ice right where he dropped the gloves with him. And the wild part about it, too, is, like, he got beat up. Like, Foligno landed some pretty good punches on him. But Shen skated off right where we were sitting, and you could just see the smile on his face. Because you're at Wrigley Field, you're in a Winter Classic. Who knows the next Winter Classic you're going to get, if you get one when Braden Shen is playing, and you just dropped the gloves in a fight in Wrigley Field against the other team's captain. That's not a schlub to fight against. So
nobody else in NHL history can say that.
No,
nobody else has ever fought at Wrigley Field. It's just a cool thing to say.
It's just awesome, and I think that on top of everything that took place in that game, it was just a perfect night.
T-Bone, did you have one? Binner save. Binner had an unbelievable save in this one, which is to be expected. That's kind of the way that it goes with these things. Big game. He showed up. Is there anything else that stood out to you?
Binner save was one. Yeah, I will say I did like it wasn't so much an in-game moment, but I did find the cool, put the ivy around the ice. That's a nice little touch. Now, there wasn't a lot on the field.
It was brown, too.
Yeah,
I walked past it, and they put banners all over it. It's like, that makes sense.
Yeah, but
he's a little dead.
I thought that was a nice touch. And like you said, I mean, Shen beat the moment, and the fact that he's the one who calls for it while his team's down 4-1. You think he looked over Foligno and went, hey, you having fun?
I'm surprised Foligno agreed to it. Foligno probably was thinking the same as Shen, though. It's like, I got to fight at Wrigley Field.
I think Shen said something to really get under Foligno's skin. Like, just a comment that BK would make, that's got a little tone behind it.
Yeah.
And Foligno's like, well, yeah, sure, fighting would be cool. Now I really want to kick your,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what.
I tell you another thing. One, they had fighter jets that flew over. I'm sure people saw it on television, but seeing that in person was awesome. And then, so they had Smashing Pumpkins perform pregame, which was really cool. But they had Chance the Rapper at first intermission. Half of the Blues players were out of the dugout, and they were all standing watching Chance the Rapper because they extended the intermission. And I got caught watching, and I'm like, oh shoot, I got more intermission to do. But I mean, it's weird to say because I'm a Cardinals fan. That was a hell of a performance, just the way that the NHL set it up. Like,
It's great. It's Wrigley, man.
Yeah, the setup of it, the history of it, man, it was just such a cool night. And the NHL did another phenomenal job putting it together.
Somebody else said Zach Bolduc hitting the guy over the boards. That was a great moment as
Taylor
well.
Hall flipping over.
And then the other one that I would get, Jordan Kyrou. Like every time that this guy plays in an outdoor game, he shows up in a big way. Had another goal in this
And
one.
how about your boy Dylan Holloway?
Yep, Dylan Holloway as well. So it was a really good performance by the Blues. You won 6-2. You needed it. It was fun to watch.
I got one more, too, because when Broberg took the penalty in the first period, Pat Maroon had hit him. Broberg took a whack at him because he was pissed off. Pat Maroon skated just slowly past the Blues bench, and I don't know what he said. I can't wait to ask Tyler Tucker, but he said something to almost every player, and Tyler Tucker just had a chuckle on his face of what Pat Maroon was saying. So once again, Pat Maroon just coming up with lines along the benches in a game.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, Joey Vitale joins us to talk about his memories, his moments that mattered the most from this game against the Blackhawks. And then we start to look forward. What's coming up next for the St. Louis Blues? We'll talk to Joey about all of that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues won in the Winter Classic over the Chicago Blackhawks by a final score of 6-2. They are off today before they return back to action tomorrow night here at home as they'll take on the Ottawa Senators. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Garber for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. He's Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every Thursday here on the show. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Joey! Have you finally defrosted yet?
I have not.
Me neither.
Yet. We were chilly, boy. I mean, I was not prepared, Alan. You were way more prepared than me, but luckily we had Kerber, who must have been an Eagle Scout. He had about 30 different types of hand warmers, gloves, and he had his boots on, so at least one of us was prepared.
I hear you got the short end of the stick on the glove warmer situation, though, Joe.
Yeah, Army's just over there.
So Army decided to sit next to me. He goes, "Hey, can I sit next to you?" I said, "Yeah, I don't see why it'd be a problem. Worst thing they could do is tell you to leave. I mean, you are the general manager." So I pulled him up the seat in the second period, and I started kind of getting chilly. And I'm in the middle of Curbs and Army, and Curbs looks at me and goes, "Hey, do you want some hand warmers?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." And so I took them, and the Army's like, he sees me with them, and he goes, "You got any more of those?" I go, "No, but here, take these." Kind of be a nice guy, and I give him one, and I pull out of my pocket the other one. I go, "Do you want another one?" He goes, "Sure." I go, "Oh, great." And then Curbs looks at me, and he kind of starts giggling, and he goes, "Hey, I got more." And he pulls out 2 more bags, and he gives me 2 more bags. So I started shaking those up, and I was just trying to be nice. And I was like, "Army, you need more?" He goes, "Actually, yeah." And he takes the next 2 from me. I'm like, "Damn it, I got none left." So I look over at Curbs, and I look at Alex, and they're just like dying laughing because Army doesn't know. He doesn't know that. Obviously, those are the only ones I had. He probably thinks we have like an endless supply. Yeah. He's not doing anything wrong. But at the same time, as soon as I offered Army, and he would take it. The old, well, growing up, there was my mom. I always offered her. You're trying to be nice. You say, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store. You want to need anything?" You're just being courteous. I don't really want you to tell me what you need. Obviously, yeah. I'm just trying to be nice. But my mom growing up, of course, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to the grocery store. Need anything?" "Oh, as a matter of fact, I need mayonnaise. I need bologna. Can you give me 1.5 pounds of that really special chipped ham?" Like, oh my God. I was thinking, like, do you need some gum? Do you need a carton of milk? Yeah. If anything. So, but anyway, it was a fun day.
I do it with my wife, too, Joe. I look at her and I say, "You need me to do laundry?" And she says yes, and then tells me, I'm like, "Son of, I was hoping you'd say no and just make it look good."
For actions that you weren't prepared to do. Never ask the question if you don't want the right answer.
That's when you screw up the laundry, though, so then she never asks you to do it again.
Yeah, there you go. Offer to do it. Do it. Do an atrocious job at it. Don't do hot water. Do cold water.
Yep.
Mix it. You throw in a little bleach on the colors. Dude, I'm telling you, it's like you're just trying to do your good thing. You're trying to be a good husband. And at the end of the day, they're saying, just let me do it.
Yep.
Just let me do it. Okay, you want to do it? You can do it.
I was just trying to be nice. No big deal. Fine.
All right. Joey Vitale joining us here on 101 ESPN. Let's talk about this game a little bit, Joe. Let's start with the obvious kind of big picture because it's such a cool event. What was your favorite moment from the game? What stood out to you about whether it was just the actual scenery at Wrigley Field or the on-ice product? What stood out to you about this game in the Winter Classic this year?
The one moment that really took my breath away, and I don't have my breath taken away all that often, especially when it comes to sports. I've seen enough of it. But there was a moment, BK, and I think Alex, of course, could probably attest to this. We were down there on ice level, and they're doing the national anthem. And as you guys know, in Chicago, they have – what's that guy's name there in Chicago who just belts it out?
Yeah, it's the anthem singer. God, what's his name? He sings during those Stanley Cup finals. I got to look it up.
He does it at the United Center every game, and he just has this voice.
James Cornelson.
James, yes, him. So he just booms. So if you ever watch the game in Chicago, when he starts singing, the crowd, this is their thing in Chicago, they just go nuts. They just start cheering. They cheer through the entire national anthem. So he starts going, he's standing right above the Cubs dugout, and he's got a scarf on, and he just starts laying it out, and the entire Wrigley Field is going nuts, right? Just cheering and hooting and hollering. And he comes to the very last word, and he just like extends it with his obviously his diaphragm voice is going crazy, and the place is going nuts. And then you see the fireworks shoot off, and then they had those planes just come right over Wrigley Field. Like, it all came together on his final word with the fireworks and the crowd going nuts and the planes over top. And they're just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that it's really hard to put into words. You know, you can't really do it any justice when you try to put it into words, but it was just a special moment, and I don't know, that to me really kicked off the evening very well.
Joe, we talked about it on pregame, and BK and I talked about it too during our show, but the reason the Blues get asked to be a part of these is because of the fan, and the part that on top of the fighter jets that you're mentioning, because that was incredible, but before puck drop, when it was just the back and forth of let's go Blues, let's go Hawks, and they were trying to outdo the other side, man, it was about a 5-minute just loud cheer from both sides of the fans. That's where it really kicked into me that it was another Winter Classic game.
Yeah, you know, and it's a good point too, Alex, because you asked me in the pregame about, you know, is this rivalry still real? And I think obviously with the teams that have fallen, both teams have fallen off a little bit, missed the playoffs the last few years, clearly. You know, I think that certainly the talent and the skills on the ice and the top of your division, that has fallen off. But, you know, the fans make the rivalry. You know, we're pulling in on the bus with all the players, and there's just rows of Blues fans in the middle of the pouring down rain. There's Chicago's fans. Obviously, they're giving us certain hand signals that I can't probably repeat over here. But, you know, there's just this passion. There's this endless amount of passion between these two teams. And to me, that's what makes the rivalry so great. You know, there were some moments in the game that are just really captured, I think, the rivalry. I love the way Braden Shen asked Nick Foligno to fight there when the game was a little out of hand. But to me, that's a wonderful moment for both those players, certainly. And I think the rivalry. But overall, a wonderful, wonderful game where the Blues jumped on them early. The power play took advantage early on relatively good ice. It's about as good as it can get. And the Blues really never looked back. So between the family skate the night before, yesterday's travel was a fun day, obviously. A little bit of delays here and there, but everyone's in a great mood. The kids, the wives, the husbands, and the fathers, and obviously their wives. Just everyone in a wonderful mood and great spirits. And just overall, I don't know if it could have gone any better for the St. Louis Blues. And aside from the Chicago Blackhawks, who maybe got found out a little down and out on that a moment, but from an NHL standpoint, a complete thumbs-up, total win.
Joe, one of the guys that's been very impressive since coming over here to the St. Louis Blues is Cam Fowler. 9 games, 7 points. He's a +6 on the ice. He looks like he's fit in seamlessly as the pairing mate for Colton Parayko, something that the Blues have really been looking for, basically since that first year of Nick Leddy with Parayko. What has fit so well for Fowler on that top pair with Colton Parayko?
You know, I think that he's always been this player. I think that the more I watch Cam Fowler, even when we got him, you know, I had reached out to some people in Anaheim who I trust, and I asked them about Cam, you know, because all I kind of saw was a small sample size of the, 2-3 times you play him a year. And especially in the last few years, you know, I don't know if there was anything that's jumped off the page when you're playing the Ducks and you're playing Cam Fowler. Now, that's no disrespect. What I mean by that is that it's been a team that's been bad for a long time. And I look at, Cam Fowler, I look at the John Gibson in net for the Anaheim Ducks, who, to me, he just looks lifeless at times. I think he looks so discouraged in the net. He almost looks like he's slow to move to get to places because of this losing culture that it can't help but infest in you as a player. And I think that that's what I saw in Cam Fowler. And that's why I gave a lot of credit to Doug Armstrong and, of course, Alexander Steen, because they found a really good player on a really, really bad team. Because you can be a really good player on a bad team, and you may look bad. On the flip side, BK, you can be an average player on a really good team and look really good. Yeah. Like I'm not crushing myself, but I was not a very good hockey player, but I was on a very good team in the Pittsburgh Penguins where we went deep every single year, and I rode the coattails of some of the best players in the game. And that's just a fact, right? And of course, then I go to Arizona. And again, I'm an average player, and then I'm on a bad team, and before you know it, see you later, right? Just you don't last very long. So that's where I think that it really comes down to the management decision to see a really good player on a bad team, and it's hard. You got to kind of clear away some of the muck and the mud from the visor to really see that, hey, this is a talented player. He's just stuck in a bad spot. So they bring him over here. And what do I think has gone well for him? I don't think he's changed his game at all. I just think he's on a winning culture now. He's a part of some champions. He's around one of the best defensemen in the league in Colton Parayko. And now he is just doing his thing, probably what he's been wanting to do for the last 4 or 5 years. But unfortunately, in Anaheim, they just have not had a very good team.
Joe, final one for me. Jim Montgomery kind of said it post-game after the Winter Classic. Glad that there's a couple of days off because it's go time for this team. How important is the month of January?
Well, it's their season. It really is their season. They're one game over 500. They need to get to about 13 or 14. They got to put a stretch together. Plain and simple. They know that. They got to put a 6-0 run together. They got to put a 8-2. They got to put a 9-3. They have to put some faction of that together in order to make a really hard push after the Four Nations tournament. And this is the time. I think 7 out of the next 8, if I remember right, are all against non-playoff teams. Tough test against the Ottawa Senators, but then you go to Columbus. You have some winnable games here in the coming future. And, the really encouraging thing about this team, Alex, is not only are you playing non-playoff teams, at least a big bulk of them in the upcoming schedule future, but you are actually finding your game. I think that even the Buffalo Sabres game that you lose, remember you outchanced them. I think it was like 75-24, something just dramatic like that. The attempt 75-24, that is just astronomical. So maybe you should have won that game. You go to the Detroit game, you played great before break. You win that game 4-0. Even the game before that, you steal a point from the Florida Panthers. You played a great game there. So Chicago Blackhawks game the other day, they look like a really good hockey team. They're playing together. They're playing solid. I think a lot of the stuff is really coming together from the philosophies and the coaching nature of Jim Montgomery. So if they can continue to focus on the game that they are putting out there and the product they're putting out there with the teams they're playing against, to me, over these next 8 games, can you find a 6-2? Can you get to a 7-1? Because that's what it's going to take for them to make a realistic push towards the end.
He's Joey Vitale. You hear him right here on 101 ESPN for the call for the Blues games. You will hear him once again coming up tomorrow night as the Blues, tomorrow night, Blues take on the Senators. I'm so thrown off.
I thought today was Friday.
Over the last few days, last few weeks, really, it's throwing me off. But Joey's going to be on the broadcast. So you'll hear him right here on 101 ESPN. Just tune in at all times. You'll hear Joey eventually. Appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Thanks, boys. You guys have a great week.
See you, Joey. Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every Thursday. I know it's Thursday.
Today is Thursday. Dude, I woke up today and thought it was Saturday. Because I told Katie I had to go to morning skate, and she goes, "No, you got to go to the show." And I'm like, "Oh shoot!" So
that's why Alex was late.
Yeah. Well, I also had a meeting that I didn't know about. So there was a lot going on that I'm like, "What day is it?"
Yeah.
That's what happens when you spend 4.5 hours in the car.
It's gonna be nice next week when we're just all here,
normal
for
week.
every day of the week.
Yeah.
And it's a normal work week for all of us. I'm sure some of you guys feel the same way, where you're like, "Oh God," many of you probably had the last couple of weeks off, basically. And so now you're finally getting into the routine, and it's a Thursday, so you got 2 days here. And then next week stuff's going to be thrown off for people because it's supposed to be crazy weather on Sunday going into Monday.
It is never fun to go back to work when you were off of work. You've got to muster up so much energy to roll out of bed.
The hardest thing, I don't know if T-Bone, you probably feel this way because you've been off for 2 weeks. Yeah, basically 2 weeks now. When I was out for that full week, trying to get back into the mode of okay, I'm going to catch up on everything that I missed and now start getting ahead for what we need to do in the upcoming week. Those Sundays are brutal. Mm-hmm. Brutal. And listen, we have the easiest, best job in the world, but it's just that part of it, whew, it ain't fun. All right, he's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. In 15 minutes, we're going to talk about what we can learn from the top 10 rotations across Major League Baseball, what they can teach us about what the Cardinals need to do for their rotation for the foreseeable future. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. You can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Let's get to this one from the 618. T-Bone, you might be interested in this. Are there any parallels between the way that Drinkwitz and Bielema have built their respective programs? Seems like both programs are on the up and up. I think there is one through line between both. And I think this is the through line between really any great college coach right now. They've built good culture within their programs. And that really matters, especially with the number of transfers that are going in and out every single season. Culture is really hard to build and really easy to break. So Mizzou, when Drinkwitz got there, it was not a good culture at all. There were some bad apples inside of the locker room. They've talked about that publicly now, and he fixed that. Like, he got everybody on board, and I get annoyed sometimes with the brotherhood stuff that he talks about, but it's real, and they clearly buy into it. So that's a big part of what he's done, and it seems to be similar at Illinois. So that would be the number one thing that I would say is similar. A lot of the other stuff is pretty different, but that one would be a similarity between the two. Yeah, I would agree with that because, that's kind of why they went with the slogan family. That's why they promote that. Is family. They want it to be about the family and bring those guys in and keep them in, right? And that's what Drink did. He talks about the guys that stayed, didn't leave for the portal. That's what he talks about Brady Cook, yep. Burden, who could have had an opportunity to transfer out if he wanted to. They bring him in, they stay. Bielema kind of, I would say, and it's not a shot to Drink because Drink develops them, but Bielema has to do more developing because he's recruiting less than what Drinkwitz is. Drink is recruiting well and then getting those guys to their potential. Bielema has to take these 3 stars, develop them, coach them up, and make them 4 stars by the time they leave the program. Bielema is more similar in that regard to what Pinkel did at Mizzou. Yeah. Pinkel got a lot of 2- and 3-star guys that ended up becoming pros. Like I always think about Sean Witherspoon or LaDamian Washington, these guys that came into Mizzou as like total afterthoughts. Charles Harris didn't have a scholarship offer from Mizzou until signing day. Signed with Mizzou as like a really lowly rated 3-star and then became a first-round pick over his time at Mizzou. Like that's the kind of stuff that you see Bielema doing as well. All right, from the 314, BK, tell us a little bit about your vacation. I've told the story, which is that everybody other than one guy ended up getting a stomach bug by the time that we left. They all had tacos, T-Bone. More tacos! Was that you? Did you get a stomach bug? Oh, I did. You had final day. I knew it. I knew it. Did he miss Monday? No, he didn't. No. I was good. My ran out during commercial breaks, but it took me about 10 days after I got back, no BS, to IBS. Get back on the regular thing, the regular schedule with everything in my only 2 deuces a day rather than 17. Exactly. I know how that feels, man. So, I mean, I will say this. Whatever you think about Mexico City, like your preconceived notions of what you think the city might be, it's probably the opposite of that. It felt like I was in New York City again. Now, it's not the same skyscraper buildings everywhere, but it's this massive city that's sprawling in ways that are almost unimaginable. But you have kind of LA-ish in this regard. You've got like the backdrop of the mountains because you're in the mountains. The elevation there is significantly higher than in Denver. And there's just like the greatest restaurants in the world, unbelievable bakeries. We went to some of the best cocktail bars I've ever been to, some amazing food. The culture was fantastic. So I couldn't have higher regards for going to Mexico City, and it was incredibly affordable. So if you're looking for a place to go, highly recommend it. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, did the either victory for Mizzou or Illinois move the needle in any way for the program? Do you think that it could hurt or help recruiting, or is this just a numbers game now? I do not think it necessarily moved the needle, but you feel better about the season because you won it. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Back-to-back 10-win seasons. I mean, it's just good for Drink when he goes to recruit or to the transfer portal for guys to say, hey, we were back-to-back 10-win teams. Yeah, that's basically about it. I don't think these bowl games matter at all, but, you add one more win. If you can say, hey, we got to double digits, that is something, right? As much as I downgrade the bowl games and as much as I didn't watch the Illinois game against South Carolina, it does matter that you end up getting to 10 wins as any program. Yeah, I think the needle moved more for Illinois in that sense than Mizzou. Because at least Bielema was able to kind of bigger. Just put another... I think that's probably true because the opponent. Yeah, I was going to say, you got another significant opponent that Illinois could say, hey, we beat South Carolina. And he had some radio snobs just saying, they're going to lose by double digits. I think South Carolina, the thing that impressed me most about it, South Carolina is a legitimately good team. Yeah. I think it was the best team that Illinois beat this year. So when you put that onto the resume, yeah, it matters to me. It matters to me. It makes the season that much more impressive. That being said, if they would have lost that game by 7 points, I don't think it dramatically changes things. That's why I think it matters who your opponent is in a bowl game. Why I if I'm a fan of a team, I want to go up against a team like South Carolina, or why I didn't really love the Iowa matchup for Mizzou. You want there to be ceiling without really a whole lot of downside. That's what Mizzou had last year. They went up against Ohio State, and yeah, it was like half of Ohio State's roster. But if you lose to Ohio State in a bowl game, who cares? You lost to Ohio State. If you beat them, you get to say we beat Ohio State. That's something you can sell to kids. So that's it. There's really just upside in these games, not a whole lot of downside, to be totally honest. All right, from the 314, who do you guys have today in the Sugar Bowl? Who do you guys have winning this one between Georgia and Notre Dame?
I got Notre Dame. I think Georgia might have the better quarterback of the two, but I still have not bought into Georgia this season. I think Notre Dame's going to be the better team.
I've got Notre Dame as well. As much as I was impressed with the quarterback because Beck is injured, when he came in the conference championship game, we saw him have one freshman moment with a bad turnover. He's such a wild card that I don't know what to expect. I know what Notre Dame is. I think we slept on them after they lost to Northern Illinois. I think they're a really good team. I think they win today.
I'm with you guys, which makes me nervous. It's probably going to be Georgia advancing to the semifinal. But we all have the same team. I think it's Notre Dame as well. And that would mean the 4 teams that ended up with the bye end up going 0-4, right?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Boise, Arizona State, Georgia, and who's the fourth?
Arizona State, and then who are we missing here? Oregon.
Yeah.
So the 4 teams with the bye would not be advancing into the semifinals.
See, Kirk, wins don't matter.
Which is going to mean that everybody says, oh, you don't want the bye. No, that's not what this means. It just means the better teams were the ones that ended up winning their conference this year.
The number one reason maybe for the bye is so your coach can go recruit during that bye.
Sure, yeah.
During the portal, more than anything else for the next year.
No doubt. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to get into some NFL quick hitters. At 12:30, we're going to talk about Jordan Binnington because he reminds me of Nathan Eovaldi, and I'll explain why coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. But next, who are the 5 most important Cardinals now that we have arrived in the year 2025? Who are the 5 most important Cardinals heading into the season? We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN. So I got to give credit where it's due. Rob Raines put this together over on his website, Alex, of for him, 10 most important Cardinals to watch in 2025.
Did he steal that from us?
Now, he didn't rank them 1 to 10. He just has the 10 people that are most important. A few of the guys that he has on here, he had some non-players a part of this list, which I think is fair. Chaim Bloom was one of them. He had Brant Brown on this list, Wilson Contreras, Ryan Helsley, and then a bunch of players on there as well. I wanted to get into this, Alex, the 5 most important players for the Cardinals going into 2025. I've got my list ready to go. I'm curious how it compares to your guys, if you were to make one. So for my honorable mentions.
Oh, I didn't do honorable mentions, man. You told me 5, I gave you 5.
That's fair. I'll get top 5 here in just a moment. Honorable mentions, McGreevy and Palante. I did not have them on my top 5, but I do think both of them are very important for what the team is trying to accomplish long term. You need to avoid that mid-tier pitching market, the $15 to $18 million a year guy. And that's what they're trying to do by developing McGreevy and Palante. So I do think they're important. I do not have them in my top 5.
If I had an honorable mentions, it would be Palante and Alec Burleson.
Sure.
Those would be my
Similar
two.
type of conversation. Hey, avoid the Jock Peterson market. Develop the internal left-handed hitter that can hit 25 home runs a year. You've got that guy now on your roster.
Totally.
Cool. My 5th most important player. I think this might surprise some people that he's this low. Nolan Gorman. I have Nolan Gorman at 5 for my list. T-Bone's shocked by that one.
Yeah,
I'm very shocked considering where he is on mine.
Where's he on yours? Just real quick, since we're shocked.
Good.
He's number 2.
He's number 2 for me as well.
The reason why, let me explain this a little bit. I think Nolan Gorman, we might be overselling what the ceiling is. Tell me what the comparison is for Nolan Gorman when he hits his ceiling. What is the comparison? Like, who's the guy that he can become
Schwarber?
that plays similarly to him? Gets on base at a higher clip.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Ugla? Isn't that kind of the guy we've always
probably,
circled?
And that's a really, really good player.
But isn't the
Like,
hope that Gorman can get on base more consistently? Or have we just come to the terms where it's dude's going to strike out?
I think he's going to strike out too much, and I don't think he's ever going to hit for the average that he needs in order to get that on base percentage where you want it to. And he's not like Schwarber, like a 12 to 15% walk rate. It's just never going to be there for him. He's too much of a free swinger. So when I think about what does that look like, it's the 3rd best hitter in a contending lineup. I don't think he's the Robin to the Batman. I think he's like the extra piece, right, that comes in.
Like the Alfred. Oh, yes.
Yes,
I
T-Bone.
know we haven't been together for a while, but we still think the same.
All right,
Absolutely.
so I've got Gorman at 5. Number 4 on my list, Lars Nootbaar. Because I do think there are comparisons that I can make if Newt hits his ceiling. I know we're all out on him hitting that at this point because he gets hurt too much and he hasn't shown the consistency. And if he can remember that the season starts in April instead of July, that might be a good place to start. But if Nootbaar hits his ceiling, it's like a 275 hitter that gets on base 36% of the time and hits 25 home runs a year, plays plus defense in the outfield, and then steals you like 15 bags a year. It's a really freaking good player, man. Like a really good player. So I think he's 4. 3 for me, Ivan Herrera. I think he could be a 300 hitter behind the plate. You can't grow those guys on trees. Like if that guy hits 20 to 25 home runs and hits 300, I don't care what the defense looks like. That's a starting player somewhere for you.
The problem is he can't play.
My top 2. Quinn Matthews is at 2. Jordan Walker is obviously at number 1. I think we're all probably in agreement on Walker at 1. Quinn Matthews for me is at 2 because he's the one guy that you have right now close to the top of your system that legitimately can profile as a number 2 or a number 3. He's got strikeout stuff. He's proven it at the minor league level, like looks consistent right now. So I would have him 2. So Walker 1, Matthews 2, Herrera 3, Nootbaar 4, Gorman 5. That's my top 5.
You didn't have one of the guys that was in my top 5, which is a little surprising. So I didn't have Quinn Matthews in mine. I just think that's probably not going to be towards the second half of the season, and I think the development's going to still be in the minors before it's in the majors. Number 5 for me was Ivan Herrera, mostly because of the guy you didn't have on your list. He's higher up, but Ivan Herrera, I think it's crucial because 1, that's like an everyday catcher for you now that Contreras is going to be your first baseman, and 2, you've got to have that offense in the lineup consistently. 4 was Lars Nootbaar. You and I were on the same line of thinking. I'm most interested to find out where he's going to play because if Nolan Arenado's here, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, T-Bone, man, you might be in a spot where Lars Nootbaar might have to play your center field position. So, like, you need him to stay healthy. You need the defense to be great, but more importantly, you need that offense to just be consistent. Number 3 is the guy you didn't have on your list, and mine's Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn was awesome, but for this to be a successful refresh, Mason Wynn has to continue what he did last year every single season.
I'm probably being unfair here because I just assume that Mason Wynn is going to be like
superstar.
Like a slightly above league average hitter.
Yeah.
And a Gold Glove defender at shortstop. And I think that's just who he is now. I think I'm already there. It's unfair that I'm doing that because it's only been 1 season. So he should have probably been on my list. But that was my explanation as to why is because I think I kind of have it locked in as to what he's likely
it makes
to
sense
be.
because you're high on him, and I'm just skeptical because of
Totally
the
fair.
inconsistency we've seen with Cardinals younger players. But he was number 3, Gorman was number 2, and Jordan Walker was number 1. Those 5 have to be good this season for it to be a successful, which is why they're the 5 most important
Did you
Cardinals.
have a pitcher on your list?
I didn't. Palante would have been the closest one for me. I don't know what they're going to do with Quinn Matthews. Like, I think Quinn Matthews is going to be in AAA until about June or July, and for that, I think his development is still in the minors before it's at the majors.
T-Bone, did you have any differences?
Not really. I mean, instead of honorable mentions, I had a 3-way tie for 5th. I had Herrera, McGreevy, and Palante on that list because I do think you need some answers on those guys because we've talked about it. You've got to start rather than spending now like $15 to $20 million on a 3-4 and develop those guys internally. I had the same line of thinking with Quinn Matthews. I just don't know how quick and how soon he'll be up here. So it's why I'm not concerned about him as a important Cardinal. He'd be top 10, not top 5. I had Wynn on the list as well. And it was kind of some of the reasonings that Alex had. For me, I won't just say after one season, yeah, that guy's going to be that.
You've been right
forward.
more often than not by doing that. Like, think about Tyler O'Neill. I was ready to give him $100 million after that season that he had here. And you were like, let me see it again.
Yeah.
Let me see it again. Same thing for Jordan Walker. I was like, okay, give him the money. Let me see it again. The correct way to do this is not what I do. It is much more what T-Bone does.
Yeah, I just want to see it again before, because I think this is the year you find out on Mason Wynn, okay, is that what he is, of what you're saying? 270, 280 kind of a slap hitter is maybe a little unfair, but kind of what he is. Hits for average, plays Gold Glove defense. Or you start to see, okay, maybe there is more power in the bat. Or, okay, it does regress, and now what do we have? Now we have an open-ended question, because it's not like he hit the ball hard, and it's not the end-all, be-all. I get that. But I've been fooled by that before. I mean, Carlson wasn't a guy that hit the ball hard, and we thought, well, maybe he's not just an analytics darling. No, he couldn't hit. So I don't think that's going to be in the range of outcomes for Wynn. But that's the reason he's on the list, is because I've seen sophomore slumps before. I want to see him, see what adjustments baseball makes to him and how Mason Wynn adjusts. Because now the whole league's got film on him, not just a month of film where he clearly was outmatched. Now everybody across the game has seen what he's been for a full year. They'll be able to make adjustments. I'll be curious to know where he is there. And then I had Nootbaar 3, Gorman 2, and Walker 1.
All right, so the reason why I have Quinn Matthews on my list, one of the reasons, is because I saw today ESPN.com put out a list from Bradford Doolittle, who I think does really good work, about the top 10 rotations in Major League Baseball. At number 1 on the list, it's the Seattle Mariners. Now, apparently they're willing to listen on Luis Castillo. They would really like... T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this real quick, as an aside. We talked about this last week, earlier this week. I don't know.
It was literally Tuesday. But that's what this week has looked like right now.
We talked about this when you were out. Somebody on the text line brought up, this has not been reported anywhere. It's purely speculation, but let's take a minute on it. Somebody said, what if the Seattle Mariners said, hey, we'll do 1-for-1 Luis Castillo for Nolan Arenado? How would you feel about that if the Cardinals decided to do that this offseason?
I would be in favor of it, because I think Castillo is I think he's what you're missing. Like, we're getting ready to talk about this list. I said this in the office. You look at this list. The Cardinals clearly have somebody that can, if not, you would favor them. Sonny Gray is a guy that you feel like you've got a chance in a game as a 1. You don't have a 2. And everybody across baseball on this top 10 list has a 2. Castillo would fit that mold. So I would be in, and I think it would fit into what I would like to see the Cardinals do, which is, and it's funny, he's a Mariner, a Dipoto-type offseason, which is move money out, bring money in, but basically finish at the same spot. And we hope by just moving the chairs around a little bit, we become a better team.
Yeah, repurpose what your surplus is for what your weakness is, and that is Nolan Arenado for a starting pitcher that can fit into the front end of your rotation.
And now, if, like, these top 5 guys we were just talking about, so let's say you hit on, I don't know, we'll say you hit on 2. Mason Wynn's the same. You hit on, we'll call it Walker and Nootbaar. Gorman maybe doesn't end up becoming that guy. Well, now I can see that 3 guys in the lineup that we're talking about, where, okay, Nootbaar's kind of that 2 guy, fits in perfectly. Contreras is going to be Contreras, and now Walker's maybe is that 3rd bat for you. And now I've got a 1-2 punch in a crappy division. Yeah, now I've got a chance. Yeah, you're a playoff team, and you've got a chance when you get to the playoffs, right?
All right, so that's what I wanted to get to with Luis Castillo, but they're number 1 on this list of the top 10 rotations heading into 2025. Philly is 2. Atlanta is 3. Feels a little high for them, but whatever. 4 is the Dodgers. That makes sense. They've just got a bunch of dudes that could potentially profile as a number 1 starter. The Yankees at 5. I feel like there's a teardrop after that. Those 5 teams, I think, are kind of in one category. And then it's the Diamondbacks, the Twins, the Rangers, Houston, and Chicago. The Cubs. Those are the top 10 right now. T-Bone mentioned it. A lot of these teams have a similar number 1 to what you have, which is Sonny Gray. You could put Sonny Gray against a lot of these number 1 starters, Justin Steele, for example, on any given day. Sonny might outpitch them. What you don't have is the guy that goes up against Shota Imanaga or the guy that goes up against like the number 2 starter for the Rangers, whether you want to call that Eovaldi or Jacob deGrom. You're missing that guy. And I think there's a chance that Quinn Matthews can become that pitcher for you. I'm not sure, but I think it's in his range of outcomes given what we saw from him a year ago. He's probably more of a 3, but maybe he can have that upside to be a number 2. And that's why I have him on the top 2 of my list. Is because if you can develop that internally, dude, it opens up so many possibilities for what the Cardinals can be and sooner than we thought. Because if you can develop that guy, now you go into the 2025 offseason, next year in the offseason. You're like, okay, we've got Sonny, last year of his contract. We've got a number 2 starter now in Quinn Matthews that we trust going into 2026. And we've got some of these answers in our lineup now. Now we can go spend the money. Well, now we can go get a star potentially on the market, or we can trade for somebody with a surplus, somebody that we decided, okay, not going to be here long term. Quinn Matthews, to me, is the guy that opens up those possibilities. So that's why I had him so high.
Well, and I like that reasoning. And Andre Pallante falls in that conversation, too, because if Pallante shows you the upside of potentially being like a 3-4, man, that's another answer internally that you don't have to worry about. And you can add pieces as 4-5s to just give you innings and give you quality with the depth throughout the lineup. It changes everything. I'm under the impression that Quinn Matthews is going to be kind of like a later in the season look, and then that gets you hyped up for 2026 of what he could be.
I think he might start in the rotation on opening day.
Wow.
I wouldn't predict it.
Say it now. Call it with your chest.
Say it with your chest.
I think if Quinn Matthews has a great spring training, they're going to be hard-pressed not to have him in their rotation on opening day. Like he's shown that he's basically ready. And we've seen this before where teams will bring up guys almost straight from Double-A. Hell, they basically did this with Jordan Walker. Now, it proved to not be the prudent decision with him. But we have seen them put guys on the fast track, and he wasn't some high school starter that just like flew through the ranks. This guy's like 23 years old. He could potentially maturity-wise be ready for the big league. So I think it will likely be closer to like May when we see him, but I'm not writing it completely off the possibilities that he could be a part of your big leig rotation.
Well, it's not like they're bringing in a lot of competition in the free agency or trades that are going to push that potential out.
Heck, I know you guys talked about this on Tuesday, but if they have to trade from their rotation because they can't move Arenado's money, it might be a situation where it is. Anyway, he's got to be up here to develop more so than because, like, I personally would say there's no fighting chance he's in the rotation come opening day right now, just because I think he should go to AAA and develop. But I can see where you get to that spot where you have to do it because you had to move money based on what ownership put on you in terms of what you could spend financially this season.
I will be interested to see how they handle it. I think it's the most intriguing storyline going into spring.
Then you could go next offseason and go get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Bada boom, bada bing, you got your superstar.
10 years, $450 million. Let's see it.
Oh, yeah, DeWitt will do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
He's Alex Estevon on BK. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll talk about why Jordan Binnington reminds me of Nathan Eovaldi. But next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I'm mad today. I get why they're doing this, but I'm upset about it.
I'm mad too, man. I'm sick of people saying have a Happy New Year.
We'll talk about that in
Is that
minutes.
that's not why you're mad?
No.
Okay.
I'm just tired.
The Eagles have announced that they are going to sit Saquon Barkley for their final game.
That's trash.
He needed, I think it's 108 yards to break Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record. Now, they're doing this because they're a smart franchise. They're well-run, and that's annoying to me. Because
Yeah, but they could have.
if he goes out there and gets hurt in a totally meaningless game against the New York Giants in Week 18 because he's trying to break a personal record, yeah, nobody looks back on that and says it's a good decision. Not once.
But he could have had it in the first quarter. It's against the Giants, man.
Potentially, and it's his old team. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different things that we're lining up to be like, okay, I can see how you would convince yourself that this would be the smart thing to do. I think records matter. I know it's strange, but like I really think this stuff matters. It's why I thought the Cam Ward thing, I had no problem with it. He can now go down and like to his grandkids say, nobody in the history of college football threw more touchdowns than I did when I was done. That's a really cool thing to be able to say, man. And if you're Saquon Barkley and you rush for 108 yards this weekend, you can say there was never a single player in the history of the NFL that ran for more yards in a season than I did. Even if you never get a Super Bowl, which is very possible for Saquon Barkley, you have that. And that's like the Hall of Fame type of thing that you need on your resume. So I wish they would have done it. I get it. It's a really smart thing for them to do. He probably shouldn't be playing this weekend. But selfishly, I hate it. And honestly, for Saquon, I feel for him.
Yeah, has it come out if this was the Eagles' decision or Saquon's decision?
So it has. He said it's the coach's decision, and I will go ahead and go with whatever he says. When I heard his comments yesterday, I did not get the sense that this was what he necessarily wanted.
And I got to be honest with you, man. I would do it. There is nothing more motivating, and I get it. You're worried about the injuries, but injuries can happen in the first minute of the first playoff game and your season's over. There is nothing more motivating for a team than watching one of your teammates break a NFL record at the end of a grueling season that I don't think a lot of people were expecting. You do that, you beat the Giants. You know how high that team is going to be riding into a playoff game with Saquon Barkley having that record? I just think that's a bad call by the coach, and I know why you're playing it safe, but you know what happens when teams play it safe? Typically, it comes back to bite you in the rear end. I would have let him play, and as soon as he would have got it, I would have sat him for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. The problem is when you play Saquon, you have to play everybody.
Yeah.
Because to get him the record, you need the starting O-line out there. And this could be them saying, hey, dude, our starting O-line is beat up. They've gone through 16 weeks now. We've got an opportunity right now to rest them. We cannot get a bye week. We can't earn that. We're not eligible for it. So let's sit all of you guys. Let's get all of the offensive linemen out of there for a week. Let's get you out of there for a week. Get you rested up for the postseason. I do understand why they're doing this. It makes sense to me. I just, as a football fan and as somebody that I really think this stuff matters, I think it sucks, but I understand why.
Yeah, it sucks, but I think you have to do it. We saw, I can't remember, Staley play his guys in a meaningless game, and I think it was Mike Williams broke his back or something. Had some kind of injury to where he missed the playoffs and affected him, right? Now, they blew a big lead in that playoff game, but you can't risk losing your MVP. Like, there is no second. That guy is the MVP of your team, and I think you bring up a good point. If you play him, you got to play everybody. So now what happens if we lose one of our best offensive linemen, or if Jalen Hurts gets hurt? Now we're stuck with Kenny Pickett as our quarterback? Yeah, no thanks. It's better to make sure you have everybody healthy.
All right, next thing up. Saquon was one of the guys that was in the conversation for the MVP for much of the season. I think that's mostly been put to rest at this point because we have couple of quarterbacks that have put together just really special seasons. Lamar and Josh Allen are really the two guys that are up for the award. I will be curious this week. Lamar Jackson's going to play the entirety of the game because their game matters for them. I don't think Josh Allen will. I think he might get a series or two, and that's probably going to be it. That's going to alter the way that their statistics look at the end of the season. I think Josh is going to get it no matter what, but that is something maybe worth monitoring going into the weekend. I did want to ask you about another guy, though, because I think we probably haven't talked enough about Sam Darnold in this conversation. Sam Darnold's team, if they win this week, will have the number 1 seed in the NFC. Sam Darnold has thrown for more passing yards than Jackson or Allen. He has 36 total touchdowns on the season. Jackson has 43. Allen has 41. He's right there with passer rating. He has a higher completion percentage. He has the most wins of any of these teams. Should we have been talking more about Sam Darnold as a potential MVP this year?
Absolutely. I think you should be talking about Sam Darnold over Lamar Jackson because that's a team that's going to lock down potentially the first place spot. And Lamar Jackson's team's not. People that are talking about Joe Burrow being in the conversation, Sam Darnold before Joe Burrow without question, because his team's a playoff team and it's been consistent all year. I don't know if he takes down Josh Allen, because the difference is Justin Jefferson. And like, as much as Sam Darnold's been awesome, Justin Jefferson's been a really good piece for that. Whereas Josh Allen, you're talking about Keon Coleman and Shakir and all of these guys. So I would probably rank it, though, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson.
See, I would still have Lamar ahead of him. I actually think Lamar should be, in my opinion, slightly ahead of Josh Allen, too. I think Lamar's the MVP so far this year. And I think Burrow would be ahead of Darnold for me as well. Like, I think look at the Vikings. They're a really good team. Look, yeah, they are. But I understand his numbers are there, but Burrow's numbers are ahead of him right now. More touchdowns, more
wins,
passing
though.
yards. I get it. It's like wins for a pitcher, though, right? Like, I get they matter, but it's more of a team thing, right? We're not looking at the Bengals going, Burrow, man, he's really losing this team football games.
Agreed. He's the only reason they're even
defense.
alive.
Yeah.
Like, they had no chance to make the playoffs without that dude playing at an MVP level. His own performance is MVP worthy, in my opinion, this season. That's why I bet on him for Offensive Player of the Week or Offensive Player of the Year a few weeks ago. But right now, the market sees it as Allen 1, Lamar 2, Burrow 3, Saquon 4. And then Sam Darnold, there's like a significant teardrop. Sam Darnold would be the next guy
Darnold
up.
behind Saquon?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair. I think I would have Darnold about 5. I think Barkley deserves love for the season that he had.
I would go Allen 1, Lamar 2, Saquon 3, Darnold 4. That would be my top 4. I'm weird, and Kirk Herbstreit hates me for this. I value winning. I think it matters that your football team wins a bunch of games. And if the Vikings, part of this is determined by them getting the number 1 seed. If the Vikings get the number 1 seed, something none of us saw coming this year, Sam Darnold will be the number 1 reason why. Justin Jefferson's amazing. That defense is really, really good. Sam Darnold has performed at an MVP caliber level this season. And like, the value over replacement, the guy they had last year was Kirk Cousins. They went to Sam Darnold and got immediately significantly better because of his performance. So,
and I would still have Josh Allen. Even if they do that, I would still have Josh Allen as the number 1 favorite for an MVP.
I would too. Josh Allen, to me, should win the MVP this year. But that's one spot. I get the argument for Lamar. Just, again, winning.
Yep.
Winning more games matters to me, and Josh Allen has done that at a better rate. All right, last thing that I wanted to get to here. I thought it was really interesting this past couple of days. We've seen the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, who is still doing media, Bill Belichick.
There we go, Bill.
Has come out and said the NFL needs to add a draft lottery. We need a draft lottery system for the NFL. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys think that the NFL should look to going towards a draft lottery system?
I think so. I think every team should do the draft lottery. I think it creates more excitement for fans. I understand, like, when you're a bad team, you get the first overall pick. That's the point. But, and I mean, look, like, the Giants just won a football game when they probably should have been tanking. So kind of defeats the purpose of what I'm saying. I just think, 1, it avoids the tanking, and 2, it creates a lot of excitement for a team that it's bad, but it's not the worst in the NFL and could potentially get that first overall pick.
I like the way that it works for the NFL personally.
Really?
I don't think they should go to a
well, you root for a team that gets aces in the 32nd pick or the 30th overall pick.
32nd.
Is it 32?
Exclusively pick at 32 every year.
30
it's
this
really
year.
Great.
That's right, 30 this year.
You ain't winning the Super Bowl, my friend.
You think they're losing an AFC Championship?
Yeah, the Bills.
Sorry. I apologize.
Bills are getting 32.
Chiefs do that a lot. The Chiefs consistently lose prior to the Super Bowl.
All right, you know what?
Time.
Yeah, let me tell you, Mahomes, choke artist.
Do you think that they should have a draft lottery?
I do.
Huh.
I do, because I don't know if it deters teams away from tanking, because I mean I've watched baseball, but I think it punishes teams for tanking because it's not guaranteed to get the number 1 pick. Guys, the White Sox had the worst season ever in Major League Baseball history. They're not with the number 1 pick, and I like that because I do think it can punish teams. Now there are going to be years where I do agree like they should have favorable odds, and there are going to be years where they end up with the number 1 pick. But I do think there should be a potential of, hey, we may go through this, and we may not have a number 1 pick
I
throughout.
don't think teams really tank in the NFL the way they do in other sports, though.
The
I
Giants
think it's so
prove you
much
right.
harder. It's so much harder to tank in the NFL. Like, the players really care. There's only 17 weeks. That's the other thing. Like, there's only 17 games for these teams as opposed to baseball where there's 162. And overtime, you will be exposed. In the NFL, it's really hard not to win a few games. Like, even the worst team, as we saw this week, the Giants can find a way to beat the Indianapolis Colts, who prior to that were still alive for the playoff mix this year. So I don't think it necessarily has a problem with the tanking. And if you have the worst record in the NFL, I think your prize should be, hey, you get the number 1 overall pick. You went through all of that BS to get here. And if you don't allow for that, I do think you could have some unintended consequences potentially, where teams are bad for like a 3 to 5 year stretch. That number 1 pick matters. So I do think it's worthwhile to have it the way that it is. But obviously, reasonable minds can disagree. Bill Belichick, who is now the head coach at the University of North Carolina.
That's not who I want in my corner.
Differently.
I do think, though, that you can tank in the NFL. I mean, we've seen teams blow their rosters apart, and they can call it kind of resetting the books. No, man, it's tanking. Like, they're trying to reset by getting younger players into their system that are more cost controlled.
I think it's different in the NFL, though, than what we see in other sports. Like basketball, we see teams go into a 5-year rebuild. In baseball, we see teams go into a 5-year rebuild where they're like, we are tanking and we are getting every good player off this roster immediately.
If you're the Buffalo Sabres, you're in a 14-year rebuild.
That doesn't really happen in the NFL, not to the same degree. We see teams that are just bad because they're incompetent, but it's very rare that you see a team tear it all the way down to the studs. The one time that I've really seen this is probably Cleveland when they went Moneyball there for a couple of years. But even then, it was like a 2-year stretch. And then
the one thing to kind of go against my point is in the NFL, unlike other leagues, you see trades of the first overall pick. So a team could get that pick, like the Patriots this year, and don't want it and trade it away.
The Bears did that a couple of years ago.
I wish hockey was more like that, to where, like, the lottery's fun, but I wish more teams were willing to trade first overall draft picks rather than always take the player.
Yeah, that's what the Patriots should be doing, by the way. They should trade the number 1 overall
Absolutely.
pick.
I think I saw somebody say they should. I think I saw them say somebody should trade. They should trade for the 2nd overall pick and get Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
My guy Nick Wright.
I was going to say, wasn't that your boy that said that?
Yeah,
your dude needs to chill.
He said they should investigate trading Drake May for the number 2 overall pick and then get Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
This is the guy, though, that
Deion Sanders as
this is the guy that's like always been your hero. And okay, now I get it. Now I get it, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, I love Nick Wright. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Hey, man. Let's just be honest.
It was Christmas.
To Nick
there was nothing going on.
There's nothing happening.
There's nothing happening.
Horrible.
There's a sports talk show. Somebody had to draw the short straw for that unpopular opinion.
Touche.
Nick's the one who drew the short straw.
Touche.
We've all been there.
We get it, Nick.
Dude, it's so bad. It's like Drake May would go number 1 overall in this draft, and it would not. People would be like tanking right now to make sure we can't have the number 2. But we have got to get Drake
Coming
May.
up next, I'm going to tell you why the Blues should trade their entire roster for Connor McDavid.
Dude, JJ McCarthy would go number 1 in this class.
Oh God,
Well,
yeah.
Nick's what I think.
Oh, Nick's with absolute. Michael Penix might.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those guys from last year are better than any of the quarterbacks that are available going into this year.
He put the Giants logo on his shoes too. Unbelievable.
I mean, he still might go there. If I'm the Giants, I'm trading up to number 1 to get him.
If I'm the Patriots, I'm trading for the 2nd overall pick.
Yeah, I want Hunter. If I'm the Patriots, that's who I want to add to my roster.
I'm taking them first overall unless somebody's willing to give me.
Hey, what do you want to play? You want to play corner? You want to play receiver? You want to play both? Cool.
You're playing
We've
both.
got nobody on this team.
This team stinks.
All right. There's your Patriots conversation for the day.
Thanks,
With
Nick
Alex
Wright.
Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll get to the juncture in about 15 minutes or so, but coming up next, Jordan Binnington reminds me a lot of Nathan Eovaldi, and I mean that in a good way. We'll talk about why next year on 101 ESPN.
Turner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tomorrow night as they return home to take on the Ottawa Senators. While bringing coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for Puck Drop at 7. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, Johnny Londoff Autoplex, CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Binnington the save. Loose puck picked up. Oh. Jones to the goal. A good glove save as Binnington had to react through a screen. It's stripped away in Taylor Hall. Denied by the right leg of Jordan Binnington. The puck back into the crease and the sprawled goaltender covers it up. His teammates standing on the bench tapping the stick, applauding their goalie. What a save. Happy New Year, folks. You can bring out the Zamboni. That's a winner at Wrigley Field. And the St. Louis Blues beat the Blackhawks 6-2 here in the Winter Classic.
Death, taxes, and Jordan Binnington coming up huge in a national spotlight game. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, there is a similarity that I have found between Jordan Binnington and Nathan Eovaldi. And you could throw others into this mix as well. Madison Bumgarner maybe would be one of them. Eli Manning, another. Guys that are like right around league average when it comes to what they do during the regular season. Nathan Eovaldi for his major league career is 2% above league average as a starting pitcher. He's right around there. And then you get into the postseason, and Nathan Eovaldi for his career is a guy that if he's your number one starter and you get into the playoffs, you know that dude's going to have a chance to win you a World Series. He has a 3.0 ERA in his postseason career. 3.0.
Wow.
That is wild, considering during the regular season, Alex, he has a 4.1 ERA. So the dude gets significantly better going against the best competition that Major League Baseball has to offer. That's Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington will have moments over the course of an individual season, basically every year. Typically, it happens right around this time, the month of December and early January, where you're like, man, should they go to somebody else? Is it time for somebody else to take over the net?
The old Jake Allen. Let's send him home for a week so we can recollect his thoughts.
Go to Bora Bora, please.
Sorry, Jake.
And for Jordan Binnington, he eventually snaps out of it. He starts to play a little better. But generally speaking, for his career, he's been about 2% below league average as a goalie. Now, there's context for that. That is worth noting. Defense at times has let him down. There have been moments where it's just like, hey, it's not working for him right now because of everything in front of him. But overall, slightly below league average during the regular season. You get to the playoffs, you get into a game like that in the Winter Classic. Alex, we both called it beforehand. It wasn't hard to call. Benner's going to stand on his head. It's going to be amazing. It's a national spotlight game. There's pressure on him to perform. He's going to live up to the moment. He is one of those guys that finds a way in the biggest possible stage.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. What's wild about it, though, is there's only a small group of goalies who are elite in the regular season and have been for some time. Like Connor Hellebuck, Andrei Vasilevsky, Jussi Saros. Those three guys, since Jordan Binnington entered the league in 2018, have a 915, 916, 918 save percentage among guys who have played 300 or more games. Here's the group that Jordan Binnington's a part of. Jacob Markstrom, Marc-Andre Fleury, Sergei Bobrovsky. So, like, he's in the group of really good regular season guys, but not elite, which isn't a bad thing. But of all of those names I just mentioned to you, BK, who do you want in a big game?
Benner.
I mean, it's probably Vasilevsky, then Benner. And mostly because Vasilevsky gets it done.
Okay. Forgot that Vasilevsky was part of that one. I thought he was in the group above.
No.
My apologies.
Hey, no. Lean into it, sir, and say it with your chest.
BK's been bold this new year. Quinn Matthews in the Cardinals opening rotation.
Binnington better than Vasilevsky?
I didn't mean that part.
Stay hot, my friend.
This is where he's at, and I think that's a really good spot to be in for Jordan Binnington.
Since 2018, Vasilevsky, 916 save percentage.
Yeah.
So
he's also played 49 more games than Jordan Binnington. So, like, guys played a lot of hockey. So I just... You're right. Like, Nathan Eovaldi is a great comp. In the regular season, you're going to have the ups, you're going to have the downs, but you always know that ship is going to be pointed in the right direction when it matters most. I can almost guarantee you by the middle of the month of January until the end of the season, Jordan Binnington's going to be locked in because that's when playoff hockey starts. And unfortunately, in November, December, it's just kind of the dog days of the season, and that's where you kind of slip up at times. And so I think that's a fine spot to be in for Jordan Binnington. Would I like him to be Connor Hellebuyck? Absolutely. But now you're talking about being the first place team in the Central Division every single year. I would much rather have a goalie who turns it on in big moments, who can take a team that probably shouldn't be a playoff team to the second round of the playoffs, over a guy that is awesome in the regular season but chokes the first round of the playoffs.
I'm totally with you. And it's the same thing for pitchers in Major League Baseball. I want a dude that's going to show up when it matters the most.
Yep.
I want to do that, like, forget the innings eaters. The guy, no offense to them, but like Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, they have value. They do, I promise you. They have real value, and we saw it this past season, honestly. To get through the regular season is a grind, and you need pitchers like that. But to win a World Series, which should be the goal, you need guys that can give you 7 quality innings in the postseason, or maybe now more, 5 to 6 quality innings in the postseason, where you're giving up 1 or 2 earned runs. And that is not Kyle Gibsons or the Lance Lynns of the world. Those guys are innings eaters to get you to the postseason. Yeah. Binnington is the guy that gets you through the postseason. Nathan Eovaldi is the guy that gets you through the postseason. Same thing would be true for Mad Bum to a greater degree. That's a higher level than probably what we're talking about here because he did it so many times. But it was a reminder for me, and I think for everybody, and I know it was the Blackhawks. Like, you're going up against a terrible opponent as well in this game, but Benner showed you all of the things that we know him to be capable of. Yeah. It's not that we've seen this once or twice. Like, we've seen this repeatedly from him. Once you get to the playoffs, he's a guy that will show up in the biggest possible moments. And it's for these kinds of games as well. I expect the same thing in the Four Nations face-off.
Oh, totally.
He's going to be amazing for Canada. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Yep. Because this is the kind of thing that he lives for.
It is. And that's why I find this setup for the month of January so fascinating, because you've got the set of back-to-backs. My expectation is you'll probably see Binnington tomorrow, and then you'll see Joel Hofer on Saturday. But then from there, I think it's going to be I don't want to say a test, but I think it's going to be a trial run of, like, Benner, are you good, or do you still need a little bit? Because
so that's what I wanted to get to with him.
Because I think if he stumbles against Ottawa, if he plays versus Ottawa, I think you probably look at this and say, let's give Joel Hofer a little bit of an extended run, because you've got Minnesota, you've got 2 against Calgary coming up, you've got a Utah game. Like, those are must-win for this Blues team.
Against Vegas, Dallas, Vancouver, Colorado. Like, you're getting into the heart of things here, man.
And so I really think, like, if Binnington looks against the Ottawa Senators, because remember, that was the game that I think Binnington started in and got yanked because it was 8 goals that they gave up. I might be misremembering that, but if he stumbles and Hofer looks great against Columbus, well, then you play Minnesota on the road. And it wouldn't surprise me if they say, let's just go right back to Joel Hofer. And then if Hofer plays well in that one, then you maybe get another game. And then Binnington goes back in. But if Binnington plays well against Ottawa and Hofer plays well against the Columbus Blue Jackets, I could see him just continuing saying, look, we'll stick with the 2-1. We think Benner's good to go.
I wouldn't even mind 50-50.
No.
I just go back and
forth,
you can. And then you just kind of see if somebody gets really hot there. And if they do, cool. Then we go to the 2-1.
Totally.
And we'll go to that side, whoever that may be, whether that's Binnington or Hofer. I'm fine either way. I feel comfortable with Hofer and net. He wasn't necessarily great in the game against Nashville either.
No, he wasn't.
Put up 7 goals, so whatever. But for right now, I'm with you, Alex. I think home ice, coming off of this like short break that you just had, I'll probably go to Benner against Ottawa. On the road at Columbus, I'll go to Hofer in that one. And then we'll see.
It's interesting, too, because the dynamic should say Hofer against the Ottawa Senators, because he's been really good on home ice, and Binnington's been very good on the road. So do you look at it that route? Because if Binnington plays well against Columbus, then he goes right back versus Minnesota.
I could ride this a little bit, because he was great in that game against Chicago. Like, let's reward him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and give you an opportunity here. It's home ice. Go ahead and get your celebration for what you did over the week. Like, I'll go with that.
Yeah, try and capitalize.
And then from there, we can kind of see how things go, because you don't have another back-to-back until after the Four Nations face-off. So then you can truly just map things out on how you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go 50-50 for like the first 4 games of this, I think. And then from there, then you need to know essentially in that 2-game span, which may be a little unfair, but is Binnington the guy that he was 2 years ago, which was, hey, not a very good regular season goalie? Or was it, because he's typically struggled in the month of December, or was it just that again? Because, I mean, you mentioned it, Alex. We know Binnington performs in the playoffs. He performed on the big stage Warren Classic. I think he's going to be great at the Four Nations face-off. This is the Blues playoffs. It starts tomorrow night. This is the push to the playoffs. So they are essentially playing playoff hockey from this point until the end of the season. Does that mean Binnington gets locked in and he bounces back to where he was last year? Then you can ride that guy into the postseason. If not, then you're going to have Hofer become that guy for you.
Blues back in action tomorrow night against the Senators. We'll see who's in net for that one. Pre-game with Alex tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Puck drop for that will be at 7. Alex going to have a back-to-back situation as well.
Love them.
Friday into Saturday. Saturday, you've got the
Happy
Blues
New Year.
versus the Blackhawks.
Shut up.
Dude, coming up later on, coming out of the break, we talked about this a little bit earlier off air. Whoo, boy.
That's when
Their
I'll get
schedule
sick.
coming off of that Four Nations face-off is insane. Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back. And then they play on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. 5 games in 8 days.
And look at the opponents. Winnipeg, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, L.A., Dallas, L.A., Anaheim, L.A.
And you mentioned the L.A.-Dallas
How
part
the
of it.
hell does the NHL set up a schedule where you play L.A. 3 times in less than a week?
Well, it goes even beyond that. It's LA is at home, that first one. And then all of these are on the road. Dallas, LA, Anaheim, LA, Pittsburgh, Minnesota. So you're in like 4 different time zones over the course of a week and a half, all on the road, 6 games in that stretch.
I wonder if they come home after that, because they got 4 days off before that Pittsburgh one. I wonder if they come home for a day, practice, and then go back out on the road for Pittsburgh and Minnesota.
Probably get yourself
Just
acclimated to the central time
figure it
zone,
out
so
a little
you're
bit.
not going from Pacific to East.
Yeah.
Although,
That would be brutal.
spending
4 days in Pittsburgh.
almost a week in LA doesn't sound so bad.
Oh, no. Well, and the trip from L.A. to Anaheim is like an hour bus ride, I think. So they're literally staying in a hotel in L.A., and they will get on a bus and drive to Anaheim, drive back home, and then play L.A. The problem, though,
I can think of worse ways to spend early March.
The problem, though, is it's a 9 o'clock puck drop on Friday against Anaheim, and then they play like 22 hours later against the L.A. Kings.
It'll be fine. Everything will be fine.
Yeah.
He's Alex Esteban. I'm
It
BK.
won't.
I really don't want to hear any complaints about that part of the trip.
Oh, here
Earlier
we go.
this year,
Here we go.
there were legitimate frustrations. Being in LA for 3 straight games over the course of 5 days, enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you're in warm, beautiful Los Angeles for a few days while you're in the heart of the schedule.
It could be worse. It could be in Winnipeg.
That's right. Yeah, they could have to do what they already did, which was going through that Western Canadian road trip where you've got Winnipeg, Calgary, and Edmonton and Vancouver.
Do they go back?
in December?
Do they go back to Western Canada again? I don't think they do.
I don't
I think that was it.
I
They
think that was
typically
their
have
trip.
one Western Canadian road trip over the course of the season.
Well, the good news, boys, me personally, because that's all that matters, not the Blues schedule. There's like one more 9 o'clock puck drop the rest of the season.
Nice. Good for you, man.
Till we're a playoff
Crap. No, there's still, until they're a playoff team, then it's 9:30 puck drop every single game.
All right, in 15 minutes, can Bielema build at Illinois what he had at Wisconsin? We'll discuss that a bit after their win against South Carolina in their bowl game. But coming up next, time for the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. At what point do I have to stop saying Happy New Year? Is it today? Is it tomorrow? Was it yesterday? And the reason why I ask Alex is because when I walked in today, I felt the urge, not like I wanted to, but I was like, oh, I should say Happy New Year whenever I see anybody since we weren't in the office yesterday. But I didn't know, are we already past that point in time? Have we gone beyond the Happy New Year every time you see somebody new?
You're asking the wrong person because you should have never opened your mouth and said it.
Just anything, just don't talk anymore.
Well, no, you could talk. Just nobody. I don't need your pleasantries of Happy New Year. You don't care about my New Year. I don't care about.
I was actually going to ask you here in a moment what you did for your New Year.
What's your New Year's resolution?
That crap. We were checking out at the.
Why?
Because what?
I'm an old soul. I kind of like New Year's resolutions.
I think it's so stupid.
It is. It's dumb. You should do it all
What's
year long.
yours?
You're totally right. My New Year's resolution is to make sure that I'm getting stuff done in the morning. Don't wait to do it. Just get stuff done in the morning. Be more of a morning person for 2025. That's my New Year's resolution.
Cool, man.
No, it definitely won't. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try.
You should have tried that before New Year's,
right.
man.
But guess what? This allows me a fresh start.
Did you do it today?
A new opportunity. Sure didn't. I did a little bit. I got here a little earlier. No, the reason why is because some of the stuff that we have to do, nobody wants to hear this, but some of the stuff we have to do after the show, like if I don't do other stuff before the show, it gets pushed back, and then I need to do this. It's a whole thing. But I'm trying to be better, all right? You're going to get the best version.
You failed on day one, man.
I didn't have that stuff to do in the morning today, so it wasn't necessary.
And you know why New Year's resolutions are crap? Because when you fail on day one, you stop trying altogether.
That's not true. I'm going to try again tomorrow.
And you'll probably fail then, and at some point you'll be like, man, this isn't working. I'm just going to stick to what I did normally.
Probably, but
and that's how it goes.
Guess what? I'm going to do my best, and that's all I can
He's
ask.
an A for effort kind of guy.
You should have been doing that from start.
Get in shape.
Is it? There you go. See, we
How'd
can
it go
do it
today?
together.
Well, I haven't ran yet today, but I'm going to when I get home.
Me and T-Bone are going to start going to work out before the show here.
Follow us on YouTube.
Serious.
Yeah, we're going to get...
If you start a YouTube page of you two exercising,
All right, T-Bone here. Let me show you how to lift the bar.
and he's lifting it incorrectly. He's doing squats.
No chance. No chance. He's doing lunges.
Oh, yeah.
With the 2-pounders.
We should make a BK and Ferrario workout video.
We can do that. We can do it on Insta.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram. I'm at BK Sports Talk. T-Bone, what are you on
I have
Instagram?
no idea what my Instagram handle is.
All right.
But you can follow me on Twitter or X at T-Bone101 ESPN.
This is going to make me sound like a Scrooge, which makes a lot of sense.
This is going to be the first thing in this segment that makes you sound like
2025, right? New Year's resolution. We were checking out of our hotel in Chicago. What was that? Wednesday? Again, days don't matter. And we're sitting there checking out, and the lady that was working at the front desk, very chipper, say Happy New Year, and I'm like, oh, Happy New Year. And then she went into a longer conversation with us, asking us what our New Year's resolutions were for 2025.
What was your answer?
I didn't answer it. Why would I give? You do not care.
I do care.
I will not see
Alex,
you again.
I think we should come up with something together for you for 2025.
Maybe be less of a Scrooge.
Maybe.
You're off to a bad start.
I'm off to a bad start. Look, I'm going to give up because it's a New Year's resolution then. I think they're lame.
I got that.
I do think it's late.
And I don't think you should tell people Happy New Year.
Yeah, I agree. I think after New Year's Day, it's over. Right? I don't need the Happy New Year anymore.
That's fair.
I don't need
Like, I haven't
Happy
seen
New
you in a
Year.
week and a half. I did not need a Happy New Year this morning.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't get one, but I didn't
You know
need
the other thing that I don't need? Don't forget to change your dates on your calendar. It's 2025. Thanks, man. I realize it's 2025.
That one I could do without. I could do
It's the
without.
same thing. It's the same thing.
I
when,
actually might need that one for a
No,
week.
I will screw that up, but I could do without somebody
but
telling
you could
me
do
how bad I
without
screwed it up.
reminding me that. Yeah, it's the same thing like at the restaurant when I'm chewing on my food. I don't need you to come over and ask how the food is. I'm eating.
As a server, you kind of have to.
No,
I
you
hate to be
don't.
the bearer of bad news.
No,
there.
you don't.
You
will wave me down if the food's not bad.
No, but it's
I'm
my
gonna give you
job
your
as a
space.
server to make sure that you feel like you're being taken care of and understood that there is a moment where you have food that you're eating
Even
right
though
now.
you may not want to know the
that's-
answer.
But you want
Also-
your space. You want to eat. You
Yeah.
want to enjoy your time.
It's that delicate balance, right? You want them to feel like you're there, but you don't want to feel like you're overbearing.
You
It's
always
the whole
stay
thing.
close. That's it. You just stay close, which is why don't tell me Happy
Hey,
New
man,
Year.
I'm not going to lie. I went to a restaurant before the New Year, and we could have used our waiter being closer because we were there for about 3 hours.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal.
That was a big party.
We
but
went
still,
over to a
shouldn't
friend's
take that
place
long.
for the New Year, and I got to tell you, I woke up on New Year's Day very hungover, and it was a mistake. because we had Luca on New Year's Day. We didn't think that we were
there
going
he is
to.
getting drunk with his kid on New Year's.
No,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
First of all, stop it. Second of all, we were planning. We have daycare during the day, and even on New Year's Day, we had that available to us. But daycare got sick, so we had Luca.
Classic.
So I was planning on taking a monster nap, a real good nap on New Year's Day.
Yep.
Guess what did not happen for your
That monster nap on New Year's Day. I
was
spent
rough.
my New Year's in the shower trying to defrost from being next to a ice for 7 hours. We got back to that hotel, and Katie was like, "We want to go grab dinner," and I'm like, because our reservations got canceled because we didn't get there on
Alex
time.
was late for his reservations and got mad at the restaurant.
Sorry, I actually didn't care. I was like, let's go back to the hotel and eat. Are you kidding me? Sorry, I was hosting post game, but Katie's like, do you want to go get dinner? I'm like, no, I want to go upstairs and just sit in the shower for 45 minutes with the hot water turned on. The water bill at that hotel is probably absurd because of me.
This is maybe TMI. How do you guys like your showers? Like, I'm a scalding
Wet.
hot. Yeah. I'm a scalding hot guy. Like, the hotter you can get the shower, the better.
Mornings
for
I
me.
do cold showers.
Really? Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, mornings it's like a quick 5 minutes,
No
like an ice
wonder you're
bath.
grumpy when you show
No,
up.
man, it wakes you up in the morning. It wakes you up in the morning. Do you take 2 showers a day or 1?
I'm typically a 1.
I'm a 2. I
Really?
can't go to bed without taking a shower, and I
2,
can't go.
like
I can't start my morning without a shower
Interesting.
because it's the cold to wake me up, and then I don't want
Do
to
you
go to
do
bed
like
dirty.
the full wash down every shower, or
No,
are you just
not
like
the
you
morning.
step in?
Morning, you step in. I rinse my hair, wash my face. Cold water just wakes you up. The nighttime is the full rinse down.
Jason in the YouTube
brutal.
chat said, "Uh-oh, BK took his kid to the brewery on New Year's Eve again."
No, I decided to just drink at home instead.
We went to a friend's house. We were right down the street.
Luca, go to bed.
I literally walked Luca home. He was sleeping.
Oh.
Were you carrying him?
Yeah.
While inebriated.
walked a block.
Unbelievable.
That's great.
I walked a walk.
All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, it's time for Believe It or Not. What a way to get
Wait,
this
we're
show.
doing that? It's Thursday. Oh, crap.
Yeah, what a way to get us
Yeah.
back into the groove of things. The 3 of us back together for the first time in, I believe, 4 weeks. So we'll get that going here in about 15 minutes or so. If you guys have a scenario, we will tell you if we are believing it or not. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you as well. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. It is 102, your time check, brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up next, we got to give a little credit to Brett Bielema in the Illinois Fighting Illini. I did not see this coming. They were able to get a win against South Carolina. Can Bielema build at Illinois what he already had previously at Wisconsin? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Credit where it's due. I did not think Illinois was going to beat South Carolina. Not only that, I was loud wrong. We said all day going into that one, Alex, that Illinois was going to get beat handily against South Carolina. That did not happen. Illinois ended up winning the football game, and they did as good of a job against Sellers as anybody has in recent weeks. So credit to the Illini. They finished the season as one of the best teams in the Big Ten. 5th double-digit win season in program history. It's their first time doing so since 2001. T-Bone Brett Bielema was a really good coach at Wisconsin, and then he went to Arkansas, and it felt like everybody kind of gave up on him as a good coach. At Wisconsin, he was leading a program that consistently won at least 9 games per season, but the floor was basically 8. They get to 8 every year, and then sometimes they get to 10 plus. Can Bielema do that at Illinois? Can you build Illinois into a program that the expectation, similar to Mizzou, honestly, in this regard, the expectation every year is you win 8 games, and in your ceiling seasons, you can get to 10. You're probably not going to be a college football playoff contender very often, but if you could pull off an upset or 2, maybe you get into that conversation. Is that something that is possible for Bielema at Illinois?
Originally, I thought no, because when I think of Brett Bielema, he hasn't necessarily recruited great. It's been good for Illinois terms because I think he's the only coach to have a top 50 recruiting class this decade, which is pathetic. But we had Lovie Smith, so, things happen.
Fair.
But, kind of lines up with his time at Wisconsin. We were looking back at this at his time in the office today prior to the show. And the more I thought about it, I think it's not just that he's recruiting at the base, kind of the same level it was as Wisconsin. I think he keeps hitting in the portal. And I think because of the transfer portal, I think you can make Illinois an 8-win school. Not because you're going to go out there and land the best of the best in the transfer portal, but you're going to be able to bring in the 2 or 3 pieces that you really need to add on top of what you're doing right now. Like you look at Luke Altmaier. Luke Altmaier was a piece that they brought in from the transfer portal, and they hit on him. They developed him. He was solid last year, and he's taken another step to his game. You look at Franklin, who was their number 2 wide receiver this year, transfer portal. Got him from Ole Miss. Probably didn't live up to the expectation that I think he had coming into the year, but he was close to it. And those were guys that they weren't recruiting, right? They weren't getting some of those 3 stars, and they're not going to develop all of them. Pat Bryant was a success story. They recruit him, develop him. He ends up becoming a guy that's going to be an NFL guy here at the NFL level. So I think you can. I think you can do it at Illinois, is have just that 8-win baseline. And I know people will look at it and go, well, didn't they win 5 games last year? They're going to have some of those years where it swings that way, because you look at last year for the Illini, they had multiple games where they were within a score. They lost by 2 to Northwestern, lost by 2 to Iowa, lost by 4 to Wisconsin. They were in a lot of those football games. So I think you're going to get some seasons where they're going to swing towards that 5-6 range, but I think it's going to be a program that's built to try and win 8 consistently.
I'm going to give you a team. I think this is probably what you're hoping for if you're Illinois. This is their wins by year starting in 2015. So over the last decade, what they have done. 12, 8, 8, 9, 10, 6. That was their 8-game regular season in 2020. 10, 8, 10, 8.
Can I guess who that was? Was that Kentucky?
It's Iowa.
Oh.
Iowa football. Now, you'll go about it probably a little differently. You won't be going back to the Stone Ages in terms of what you're doing offensively, but Iowa has a clear identity on who they are, how they go about it, and consistently, they're getting 8 wins every year. It's not pretty. It's not a particularly fun brand of football to watch, but if you're an Iowa football fan, you know every single season I'm going into the year and I'm winning 8 games. And you might in any given season have a 12-2 year like they did in 2015. You might have a 10-4 campaign like they did a year ago. You're going to have pros on your team. It's going to be a fun team to watch. You're going to have guys that you can watch turn into stars over the course of their time at Iowa. That's what I think Illinois is hoping to become. You want to be in that second tier of the Big Ten on a regular basis. You probably won't be regularly where Oregon, Penn State, or Ohio State are. Michigan will probably at some point get back up into that mix, but you're typically going to have a top tier 4 teams in your conference. And Illinois will very rarely be a part of that. Mizzou, it's the same thing. Very rarely will Mizzou be in the top 4 in the SEC. But if you're on the outside looking in of that group, there will be seasons where you could potentially be in the mix for the college football playoff. So I think long term, that's what you're hoping for. And I think it's possible there, man. Yeah. If you can do it at Iowa, I see no reason why you can't also do that at Illinois.
I'll tell you why the part I'd be optimistic with it, too, with Bielema is just his ability to coach. I mean, some of these guys that they've brought in, the ability to make them a better player than what the original expectation was. Like, I think when you can identify talent that works under your system and you know that you can coach them up, kind of like you mentioned earlier, what Gary Pinkel was, where you could bring in the right guys and know that I could get the best out of this specific player. That's where I would give the advantage to Brett Bielema. He just wasn't able to accomplish that in other schools. But
just in Arkansas, and Arkansas is a disaster, man. I think we've now seen, like, it's just hard to win there.
Yeah. And so now you're at a spot that has a good enough culture. You're at a spot that has the opportunity to approach some of these transfer portal players, and you've got a decent resume to back it up. You can bring in talent enough that you believe can get you to the next level.
Yeah, big thing, they've got to be able to replace their quarterback. Next year is the last year where you're going to have Altmaier back into the conversation, but if that's where the swings come in, right? Like, you look at Michigan. What happened this year? Well, a lot of stuff happened. They don't have the same coach that they had previously. But most importantly, J.J. McCarthy's not there.
Yeah.
They didn't have anybody internally ready to go to replace him. What happened to USC this year? Well, a lot of stuff. Gestures at Lincoln
Seems like
Riley.
There's more with just the quarterback.
But Caleb Williams left, and the bottom fell out from it, right? So I think that's the biggest thing for Illinois to make sure that they have in place after Altmaier is gone is you either better be ready to go and spend a crazy amount of money in the portal, as Mizzou had to do this offseason, or have somebody internally ready to go for next season. So that's going to be the next big thing that he's got to be able to achieve. But I think they've got the right culture in place to potentially make this thing more than just a one-off where, okay, cool, in 2024 they were great, and then the next year they won 6 games.
And it's encouraging that he's hit on the quarterback twice now, right? Because Tommy DeVito was a transfer. They got him from Syracuse, and then they land Altmaier from Ole Miss, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
So, like, they've landed 2 guys in the portal, and they've been hits. Now, they haven't been like, wow, that guy was a great quarterback. They were good kind of game managers that can make big plays when necessary. We saw Altmaier play really well in a handful of games this year. Tommy DeVito played very well in a handful of games. That's all you need from that quarterback spot.
Bingo.
If you build the rest of the team around them, and then you build a really solid defense, which they've had the last 2 years.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. On the college football side of things, we do have one other game today, which is Georgia going up against Notre Dame. We've all got Notre Dame in that one, and I think a big part of that, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is because of the quarterback situation at Georgia. I just don't know what to expect out of it. He was fine in the SEC championship game. I think you could make an argument that he was actually better than what they had been getting previously. Where do you view what Georgia is trying to... Let me ask this a different way. If Georgia loses today and the quarterback is the reason why, are we going to see them like have to really go out and go into the portal and try to get somebody like a Quinn Ewers, maybe a Jalen Milroe for next year? Like, how much does today's game not just dictate what happens for them in this playoff, but also how we view their program going into next season?
Yeah, I think if you don't win this game, you have to go. And if the quarterback's the reason, and I wasn't as high on Gunnar Stockton after that last game, I kind of felt like he looked a little scatterbrained, which makes sense. You got thrown into because of the injury. But if you don't have success here, you have to go to the transfer portal because, like, you've had, 3 weeks since that national championship game? That means you've had 3 weeks to prepare. Yeah, that means you've had 3 weeks to prepare with this quarterback who was a backup, now is the starter, because you knew,
a big-time recruit.
Yeah, you knew Carson Beck wasn't going to be playing. And if you still don't show up with this one against Notre Dame, who, like, you should be the better team on paper, I think you have to look at this. So we got to go get an upgrade. You got to go get Quinn Ewers. You got to go get Jalen. We have to have an elite quarterback step in to help our program.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I honestly think it might even be the case if Stockton plays just okay. You know, he's going to have to be great for them to really consider not going out there, because Georgia's not a program where you can just kind of go into quarterback purgatory, right? It's a program where you need to be the best of the best, and you need to be in the college football playoff. Like, that's the expectation, and, like, there's even more to that, right? You should always be a semifinal team when you're the Georgia Bulldogs and that buzzsaw that Kirby Smart has. So unless you see Stockton play great today, then they will have to go to the portal, and not only go to the portal, but go land a star in the portal.
Somebody on the text line from the 618 said, guys, look at his portal. He's going to be a stud. Possibly. Connor Wigman was the #1 dual threat quarterback in his recruiting class. Gunnar Stockton was second. Gunnar Stockton is the guy that's going to be starting today for Georgia. Connor Wigman has not worked out the way that he was supposed to at Texas A&M and had to transfer this year as a result. He's at Houston now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Other guys that were on this list, Bo Perbula, interestingly enough, Mizzou's new quarterback, was the number 6 dual threat quarterback in that class.
Hell yeah.
He was a backup for the majority of his career. We'll see what he does at Missouri. Thomas Castellanos, the guy that was at Boston College, is now at Florida State. He has since transferred. He was number 8 on this list. Alex Orji, who was supposed to be the next great thing at Michigan, was terrible for them. He was number 8.
This doesn't get me all warm and fuzzy about Perbula.
Yeah. I was saying, this tells you a lot about that quarterback class.
It speaks to just quarterbacks are hard to find, man. Even the top ones that were projected to be great. It's why I've had so much skepticism about Sam Horn. He might be great, or he could be like almost every other guy that I just read on this list. You just don't know. It's a total crapshoot, and it's really hard to get it right at the position. So he might end up being really good. I'm going to take Notre Dame in this game because I know their quarterback is pretty good. He's got some flaws, but he's a really good runner, and he's more often than not pretty accurate. He's tough as nails, too. I like Riley Leonard. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, the Cardinals are one of 4 teams that have yet to sign a free agent this offseason. Are you in favor of their current direction? We'll talk about that. I know T-Bone's got some frustrations with it. We'll get into that at 1:30. Believe it or not, coming up next.
This feels so good, guys. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free.
We're flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on 101 ESPN. Boys, that one felt good.
Happy New Year.
First time
you know?
we've all been together.
I can run that for them.
And none of us have been sick in like 3 months.
I might be still. I don't know. Mine might be laying dormant from the Winter Classic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I woke up
Scratchy throat.
Wednesday morning. I'm like, I feel like ish. And then luckily today I was good. But you know what? I wasn't going to be like BK, and I wasn't going to let a little head cold keep me down. Said I'm showing up.
I've only done that like 6 times. So
last year.
within the last few months.
Within the last few weeks.
That's
IBS didn't keep him down, though, after Mexico City.
That's right. I came in. I was here.
He came in. Stunk a little bit.
I hung out with some buddies while I was back home for the week and a half, and we were hanging out and listening to music. I said, play Believe It or Not. Never heard of it. little tough to swallow.
It's tough, but fair.
And T-Bone just singing in the corner, his friends awkwardly staring at him.
Guys, believe it
Who's
or
never
not,
heard this one?
the best bet based on value to win the college football playoff national championship is actually Penn State at plus 450. The odds right now in Vegas: Ohio State at plus 110, Texas at plus 380, Penn State at plus 460, or the two teams that are playing today, both at 7.5 to 1 odds, Notre Dame and Georgia. Best odds right now, if you're placing a bet, you'd place it on Penn State.
I believe that. We know about Ohio State. The teams that they probably shouldn't beat, they find ways to, but the teams that they absolutely should crush, they find a way to lay an egg, and that would be a Penn State in a championship game. So right now, I think there's only two teams that would be, my opinion, the favorites, and it would be Ohio State or Penn State.
I'm not going to believe it. I think the best value on the board is actually the Fighting Irish.
Oh.
I don't know if they'll beat Ohio State, but man, I said this earlier. I think they're the sleeping giant in the playoff, man. They not only beat Indiana, now maybe that was more of an Indiana thing, they beat the crap out of Indiana. They steamrolled everybody else that they played against after that Northern Illinois loss. I think that Northern Illinois loss is the one that keeps holding back our opinion on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So that's why I feel like they could be a sleeping giant. They've been playing well. I actually like them as the best value bet on the board.
I like that. I think the worst value is Texas.
I agree.
Texas has to play Ohio State, and that seems like a rough one. So that'll knock them off. And then I think I would bet this one. I'm believing it. I think Penn State, I actually might put a little money down on them. At plus 460. I think it's a pretty good bet, man.
Ferrario told you the rules, though. You make sure there's 7 more bets that go with that one.
I will say, when I was
True
in
or
Illinois,
false, Drew Aller is the best quarterback remaining in the college football playoff.
For Quinn Ewers?
Will
Howard, backup quarterback at Georgia, or Riley Leonard, who's a good runner, but like a average thrower.
I think I would put Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
And then I mean, it's kind of like it's like a tie for first, though, because I think Allers is up there.
He's my favorite to watch of those guys.
I'd actually probably give the edge to Aller. So, yeah, I'd probably say true. I think that is the case.
I think they're a really good team, man. And they've got a stud tight end, really
that
good
guy's
edge
a
rusher.
beast.
He's amazing. I so badly want to see him in Kansas City, man. I so badly want him to be the replacement to Travis Kelce. But yeah, that would be my bet. All right, Alex, what do you got for us?
Believe it or not, guys, after this World Juniors tournament, Dalibor Dvorsky is going to get a call up by the Blues.
What time? Say that again.
After the World Juniors tournament. So, middle of January.
After he wins it all?
I don't know if he's going to win it all. His team does nothing beyond him. You guys know what he's been doing in this?
He's been unbelievable.
He's got 4 goals and 7 points in 4 games.
I think what you do if you're the Blues, I don't think you do it right afterwards. I think you want him to go back to the AHL, adjust again to that level of competition, because he looks like a man among boys, which is what he should look like.
The best of any kid that's in this tournament right now.
That's what it should be. He's going up against AHL players regularly. Now he's going up against younger players. So I think you get him back up to the AHL, acclimate him for 5 to 7 games, and if he continues to show out, I think it's about time.
The one thing that I will say that he has not been good at in this tournament is the defensive side of the game.
Really?
He's -2 with all of those points, and Slovakia has just been really bad in terms of their defensive play, and that's what you're going to need.
Could be, hey, he's on the ice with other guys that aren't as good as him.
Well, and some of it, if you believe the offense is there, which it is, you bring him to the NHL to play a wing so you can work with some of the centermen and figure it out as they move along like Thomas did.
I think he needs to play center. If he's going to be here, he's got to be at center.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you, but right away, I think you slow play him at the NHL level. I'm with you there. And just put Sonny on the wing with him and then hope that he kind of interchange with it.
He's got Bolduc, he's got Neighbors. Boom, good to go.
That's what I would do. I wouldn't believe it either, just because I think you're going to see them go back to the AHL for a while, because they've been willing to slow play this for a while now. I think they'll still do that.
I'm not believing it either. I think this is still going to be post-trade deadline, but, I mean, you can't deny that he's probably going to wrap up this tournament with the most points of any player.
I wouldn't even mind if you, get him a few games. I think we've talked about this, Alex.
Get him a taste.
The AHL still plays through that Four Nations tournament, right?
Correct.
I think what you do is you get him 5 games before the Four Nations, get him a taste of it, and then you send him back down during that break, and then he comes back up to finish out the season with the team.
Yeah.
So that way he adjusts to it, he can learn a little bit, but doesn't get his teeth kicked in where it's just every night, over and over. And then you learn from some of those mistakes, send him back down. He can implement that stuff into his game down at the AHL level, and then boom, you're back up 2 weeks later.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, because he's got basically his entry-level deal just pushes, it's a 3-year deal that he signs, but it pushes to the following year unless he plays a certain amount of games, and I think that certain amount has to be 9 games. So as long as he plays less than 9 games, his entry-level deal, the 3 years that he's $750,000, pushes to the following year.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get more than 9 games up here, for sure, I think.
Maybe they say, we'd like to push this back a little bit.
Guys, believe it or not, Quinn Matthews will make 15-plus starts this season with the Cardinals.
I think they are putting a lot on him this year. I think that's the plan.
I'm not believing this. I think it's going to start off with McGreevy and Palante and Graceffo, and Matthews is going to be the dog in AAA, and then a couple of months into the season, that's when you get Quinn Matthews at the MLB level.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say not. I think it will be close. I think he's probably a post-deadline call-up. I
think he gets 10 to 12.
Yeah, I was thinking somewhere in that range, because I was looking at Palante. Palante got 20 starts, but he started making starts in late May. So, if I'm thinking late July, end of July, post-deadline, you're looking at about 10 to 15-ish. Yep. So I would say not believe it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, the Indianapolis Colts will fire their general manager, Chris Ballard, by the end of the year. I'm really curious to see what they decide to do. They have to get rid of their defensive coordinator. At a minimum, that is the starting point. Gus Bradley has got to go. I don't know what they do at quarterback. I think it's an open-ended question on if they are actually willing to commit long-term to Anthony Richardson. We'll see.
I think you have to fire your GM before you can make that decision, though, if you don't think you've got the right GM. So
maybe
I would say believe it. I mean,
I don't know what to do with their owner. I mean, their owner is a total wild card.
This is a disappointing season, though, if you're them.
Hugely.
You put too much stock into this to be a successful playoff team, and you underwhelmed. So you have to make a change somewhere. And if you like the coach, you got to fire the GM then. And then let the GM decide, is this the quarterback that carries us to where we want to go?
I think you're right. Dude, do you know who their leading receiver is this year?
It's the dude that is always so good with Joe Flacco. And what's his name?
Downs.
He's third.
Wow.
Is it Pierce?
Yeah. Alec Pierce is their leading receiver this year, which speaks to their problems offensively.
Because, man, if you've got
35 catches.
If you believe in Anthony Richardson, wouldn't you go out there and get T. Higgins? If you believe in the quarterback.
I don't know what their cap situation looks like, but
I mean, you get a rookie deal still.
Yeah, at quarterback you do, but they've got some big time contracts on their books. So I'll say not believe in it. I don't think they're going to fire him.
Yeah,
I think they probably should, but I don't think they will.
I'm not going to believe it, and I think the worst thing you can do is keep the coach, fire the GM.
Agreed.
Because now you start to get into that cycle where the GM ends up having almost like a lame duck year, if you want to call it that, or the coach. Because then the GM says, well, I really want my own guy. So then you wait a year and then you fire the coach. Now you hire the coach and you just wasted a football season. So I will say not. I think you either have to keep them both or you have to fire them both and clean house.
They've got some money to spend this offseason, so that could be something worth keeping in mind as well. They do have a decent amount of money that they can potentially add to the books. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, the Minnesota Vikings will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year.
I'm going to stick with my gut, not believing Sam Darnold, and I don't think he gets all the way to the NFC or gets all the way to the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to believe this.
I'm not going to believe it either. I think it's going to end up being Philadelphia. I do not think it will be Minnesota, and I do not think it'll be Detroit because I don't trust their defense.
I think Detroit would beat Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game.
This is the least confident I felt picking a side of the bracket in a really long time.
I was just thinking the same thing because I don't trust anybody in the NFC.
I think all of them are extremely flawed. Now, what I'm doing to Minnesota is kind of unfair because they're not actually flawed based on what they've done on the football field this year. My concern is Sam Darnold, who I just said earlier should be a top 4 player this year for MVP. And I truly believe that. He's been outstanding, but it's a regular season award, not what I'm projecting for the playoffs. And I do wonder, what does that look like? But who's the defense that's going to take advantage of him? It's his own. Like, if I was worried about Sam Darnold against somebody in the postseason this year, it would be the Vikings defense. But thankfully for him, he doesn't have to play him. You're worried about him against the Eagles? They're fine defensively, but they're not scary. The Lions defense is atrocious. We just saw him go up against the Packers. That doesn't seem to scare me a whole lot. You worried about him against the Bucks, the Falcons, the Rams? Like, I don't know who that team is.
No.
So
Rams can't do anything, man.
I'm starting to believe that they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Whoa.
I'm not there. I am not there.
We went through that journey together until right there.
Yeah, I was with you all the way up until that
you
point.
took an extra rip, and I was like, whoo,
Hey,
here
why
we
is he
go.
still going?
You have been about as bold as you can ask this
man.
show today.
I just, like, who's the team that you really feel confident is going to beat the Vikings?
I mean, you're right.
I can't say it with my chest for any of these,
But
especially if they're the 1 seed.
You're right.
I will say this. As much as it is because, you know, when you mention that conversation, like, who's the defense that stops him? Like, I have that conversation with, like, Mahomes, right? Who's the defense that does enough against Mahomes? Not stop him, but does enough. I don't know if I feel that way about Darnold because I haven't seen him play in the postseason. And we talk about this in the playoffs all the time. It's a different animal, man. Kirk Cousins, great regular
100%.
season quarterback, choke artist in the playoffs. I don't know what Darnold is, and until I see like 2 playoff games, you running through all those defenses, it could be the defense we're least expecting. Like right now, they
it could
match
be
up
Detroit,
against.
who has nobody.
Right now, they match up against who? LA, if I'm not mistaken.
They would match up against the 4 seed as of today. Yeah,
So like, I could see where they lose that
the
game.
Bucks. They would match up against the Bucks.
I could see the Bucks defense just. I don't know if it's them doing enough. It's more of Darnold not doing the right things in a playoff game.
I don't know, man.
I see
it's
Sam
really
Darnold.
intriguing to me.
I see him making a mistake in the playoffs that people get upset about. And that's why I can't buy into it. Until I see it in the playoffs, I can't buy into it.
I so badly wanted to pick the Packers. Like, that was my squad, man.
Yeah, they talk about choke artists.
Yeah, they peed down their leg in that game against the Vikings, and it made me concerned about my selection. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That is Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, the Cardinals are one of 4 teams in all of Major League Baseball that has yet to sign a free agent. Is that a good thing? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Chandler Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tomorrow night as they host the Ottawa Senators. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Joey will join Chris Carver for puck drop at 7. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. I did the thing that I hate that people do. I hate it. I fell for it. I fell for the clickbait. Bleacher Report has a stupid article up. It's the 25 best athletes for the next 25 years.
Bleacher Report.
Which is just a ridiculous premise to begin with. How are we going to rank the next 25 years of athletes when some of them might literally be like 5 years old
Macklin
right now?
Celebrini 19 years old. He wasn't even born 25 years ago.
And he's probably would be on my
I
list.
was born 25 years ago.
They had Connor Bedard at number 3 on this list.
That's terrible. He's not even the best hockey player right now at his age bracket. He's bad.
The Blues might have a couple of players that long-term I would take over him.
Yes. I think Connor Bedard is probably going to be one of like the Nail Yakupov conversations where it's like, is this really worth the first overall pick?
Cooper Flagg, I think he's going to be a good player. I've been a little underwhelmed from what we've seen so far, but he looks like he's going to be a good player. Plays for Duke, freshman this year. He's good.
My boy Yakuchonis make the list?
Hey, he did not, unfortunately.
I'm surprised you pronounced that correctly.
Cooper
I'm not
Flagg
sure
at
I
number
did.
5.
Okay, Cooper Flagg can't be at number 5 because I don't see enough of Cooper Flagg for it to be like, oh yeah, like what's his
And him
face?
over Luka. Like, come on.
Yeah, what's his face over?
Well, Luka's not.
Why am I
gonna do well.
blanking on the kid from New Orleans that played for Duke?
Are you
The top
talking-
pick.
Zion?
Yeah, I saw Zion's name like everywhere for the entire year he was in the league. And Cooper Flagg is like, it's kind of hit and miss.
They do have Victor Wembanyama at number 1 on this list. That feels right.
That one feels.
And Caitlin Clark at number 2.
That's
that feels-
absolutely right.
There's a few of these. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. They had
Connor
Patrick Mahomes all the way down at number 10. They had Arch Manning at number 6 for perspective.
Connor Bedard being up there, that tells you they don't watch hockey.
Yeah.
Because Connor
There's a
Bedard.
lot
Wow, we're
about
getting
this
in. I
list.
don't watch how.
No, I can promise you they don't watch hockey. They're going off of Connor Bedard being the next Connor McDavid article and said, that's the guy.
Again, I'm mad at myself. I don't blame the article for what they did. I'm sure they were assigned this, and they were like, oh, okay, cool.
No,
I
they
guess I'm
worked
getting
hard,
yelled
man.
at.
Probably had the reaction like BK.
They crunched.
Oh, come on.
They crunched the numbers.
It's a bad list. Anyways. All right. So speaking of lists, there was a list that was put out by MLB Trade Rumors, and this one I actually find to be pretty compelling. It's about what teams have spent so far this offseason. New York Mets, for example, have spent $917 million in guarantees for free agents. That includes Juan Soto, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, Frankie Montas, Griffin Canning, and then a few different guys that are on minor league deals.
So the only one that means anything is Juan Soto on that list.
The LA Dodgers are second. Again, the Mets have spent $917 billion. The Dodgers are second at $287 million. Blake Snell, Teoscar Hernandez, Blake Trinan, and your boy, Michael Conforto.
Well, in the Dodgers' defense, they spent all their extra money last year.
All of it's going to be spent in 2035.
Yeah,
when they're
$700 million
paying.
was deferred
I
last
think
year.
they got to put 680 million in the bank now.
Smart.
The important part of this, though, to me, at least here locally, is the bottom of this list. There are only 4 teams in Major League Baseball that have not signed a single player in free agency. It's the Minnesota Twins, the San Diego Padres, not a typical Padres offseason, Seattle Mariners, and St. Louis Cardinals. Those are the only 4 teams in Major League Baseball that have made 0 signings this offseason. What do you guys make of that? What is your reaction when you hear the Cardinals are one of 4 teams, and those are the other 3, Twins, Padres, Mariners, that have yet to sign a free agent?
2 of those teams make sense that they're on that list. And they're Minnesota and St. Louis. Like San Diego and Seattle makes 0 sense to me that they're not on that list. One, because San Diego obviously was so good last year. You lost a piece of your rotation, and now you're trying to stay competitive with what the Dodgers are doing. And then I think the Seattle Mariners is wild to not be on that list considering how bad their offense was last year. You get the best rotation, arguably, in baseball, and you're not going to add to your offense, and maybe there's a move still coming. I think the Twins and the Cardinals make absolute sense. The Twins, of course, have been trying to chop money down the middle for the last couple of years.
That's Seattle's explanation, too, for what it's worth.
Makes sense.
And I think
but
San Diego.
But you also have such a good roster that why wouldn't you be trying to find something, even if it's a bridge kind of thing that just kind of comes in and adds a little piece. To me, I'm not upset about this. The Cardinals said that they needed to refresh this, And I'm glad that they're backing what they said. They're still trying to find ways to cut money. Maybe when they get rid of Arenado, that they look at maybe a smaller addition. This is exactly what I expected from this Cardinals team. And frankly, it should be. There's no point in paying somebody 2 or 3 years to come in and take over a spot that I'd much rather see one of your younger players playing in.
I can't take anything you're saying seriously
because I'm holding the toilet paper.
Toilet paper
I need,
right now.
Sometimes I need things in my hands while I'm
That's
talking.
what my pen is for.
Yeah. Well, I lost my pen. I don't know where it is. I left it in Wrigley Field. So now this was the closest thing. All right.
That's hilarious.
It was either this or these. It's the only 2 things that are close, and so the toilet paper
He's just
was round.
like a roll of toilet paper and like sliding it around. I'm just waiting for him to like
Ryder got that.
throw it across.
All right.
Okay, now I got my pen.
Okay, now restart.
Okay, let me start again. It makes sense because
T-Bone, are you mad about this?
So I want to be clear. I like the plan that they're going with, which is let's reset a little bit, right? Let's make sure that we get the young guys playing time and kind of reset a little bit for when Chaim Bloom takes over. It is ridiculous, though, that they are, A, still seeming to need to cut payroll, and B, that they haven't spent a penny yet, right? Because they have holes that they need to fix that they have to fix in free agency. They need to add to the bullpen, whether they are trying to compete or not. They need to go out and sign somebody. Even Andrew Kittredge in a nice $10 million deal. They should spend some money this offseason. It is ridiculous
to not spend
a dollar.
Aren't those arms that you could just get before you go to spring training? Like, those aren't arms you need to sign right now. Those are like minor deals that you can throw out there.
Like, why is Kittredge not a Cardinal, right? Like, why does he need to hit the free agent to go explore when you saw what he did last year? He would make perfect sense on a 1 or 2 year deal for this team to just help them in their bullpen, which was, if they're still claiming they want to be competitive, they need to upgrade, right?
Well, now you're asking the question of why is Kyle Gibson in free agency? Why is he not here and Eric Fetty is elsewhere?
And maybe this is just because I've been upset with more of their process based on the way that they're doing things, where it sounds like it's a Arenado or Fetty decision when it's, okay, well, why not do, but why is Fetty a guy that we need to hold on to the trade deadline when you literally acquired him for an injured Tommy Edman who didn't even go to the team that you got Fetty from, right? You're not going to get a lot in return for Fetty at the deadline. He's more valuable in the offseason.
I've got your reason why they're not going out to sign
Do I want to know?
a reliever. Helsley, Fernandez, Graceffo, JoJo, Libby, King, Matz, O'Brien, Roycroft. That's 9 names, all likely to be at least in the mix, potentially, for their bullpen going into next year. And they want to find out what they have in them.
As the great Kirk Cousins once said, you like that?
No.
I'm not telling you have to like it. I'm just saying, like, if they're going to, if they're staying true to what they said their plan is, which is to get answers on their young players, most of that, we all agree, is about their position players, right? They haven't given them the runway that they need. Now, that might end up getting totally screwed over by the fact that they can't apparently trade Nolan Arenado. We'll see what happens there over the next couple of months. But in their bullpen, it's kind of similar. Like, we need to find out, what is Gordon Graceffo? Is he going to be somebody that they can actually utilize on their major league roster moving forward? If the answer is no, fine, whatever. It's a missed pick, but that happens to teams. Saw a list the other day. The Cardinals have drafted and developed the most wins above replacement over the last decade in all of Major League Baseball from what they drafted and developed internally. So they're doing okay in some of these regards. It's just that they haven't developed a star. What is Matthew Liberatore? What is he? Because last year I thought he was a really good bullpen arm. Can he be a 7th, 8th inning guy? Or is he just more of a, hey, you got a couple of lefties coming up, you want Libby coming into the game?
That's where it's going to come down to the Cardinals making the right decision and not playing back and forth with them.
Can you use Riley O'Brien out of your bullpen regularly? Do you actually have something in Roycroft, or was that just kind of more of an interesting story? Those are the kinds of things you need to find out about, and the only way you do that is if you don't go out there and sign multiple bullpen.
And again, I think they will.
You could probably have one. You could probably go sign one.
And I think they will. I think that's going to be like the latter portion of the offseason before they get to spring training, where they bring in a guy that might still be available for cheap. I'm not upset about them not going to get a bullpen arm. And everywhere else they would be signing somebody, I am really glad they're not, because you bring in somebody and overpay or give too many years to a guy, you're going to get stuck where you should just be putting a young player in that position.
Where I will agree with you, though, T-Bone, and you called this earlier today, do a Dipoto. I kind of like that phrasing. That's what I wanted to see the Cardinals do this offseason. And they still might. We're still very early. There's a lot of guys that are like the pivot points for the Cardinals, options that are available. Like, hey, you want Fetty, or do you want to go sign Jack Flaherty or Sean Manaea? Like, some of those guys are now starting to come off of the market. Nick Pivetta would be another one that I would throw into that mix. You have to wait until some of those options on the free agent market are signed before you can get to the Eric Fetty side of things. But like, trade some pitchers for guys that can potentially help you in the minor league system, or trade Nolan Arenado and in return maybe get something that can help you at the major league level in the bullpen or with your rotation. Like, those are the kinds of things that I would be curious to see them do this offseason, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily on their horizon either.
Yeah, and the reason I would like to see them do that is because I think if the position you're in as the Cardinals, is we talked about earlier, right? You hit on two of these young guys, just position players. You probably got a really good team that can win the division. And the whole reason, people will probably say, well, why do a Dipoto when it hasn't worked in Seattle? Dipoto was doing a Dipoto with the Astros running the AL West. There's no juggernaut running the NL Central. Like the Zips projections are coming out on Fangraphs, and they feel about right. I think they had the Cubs at like 88 wins. Yeah. They had the Reds about a 500 team this year. Like that feels about right. So one little allocation of money where you take Arenado's salary, maybe you trade that out, maybe you bring something else in that helps. It's reasonable you become a better baseball team and you end up making it to the playoffs. The whole thing on the bullpen, the reason I'm on that one, and like it's a $10 million deal. It's not like I'm saying they need to spend $50 million.
I think that requires them to trade Mats first. That would be my guess.
Maybe.
Money out, money in.
Yeah.
The thing, though, is like, to me, you still have to add to that whether Mats does or doesn't get moved. But the reason you mentioned all those young guys, I don't want to say that I know what they are, but it's the bullpen. That's a fickle spot, right? Like most of those guys that we just named, I bet if you went back 3 years, only one guy's probably from that bullpen 3 years ago, and that would be Helsley. So are you really learning a lot with a bullpen? I think bullpens are so fickle that I don't know if, even in a retool, you really look at that and say, we have to get these guys opportunities. Really the only name there that is intriguing, because most of those guys we know, Graceffo would be one, but O'Brien, because O'Brien's got strikeout stuff. I mean, he can't hit the broadside of a barn, but he's got strikeout stuff. But again, he might be just a one-and-done kind of guy where he has one great year, never has that again, and just bounces around as a reliever.
My retort, because I do kind of agree with most of what you said there, I think some of this might be showcasing. Like, hey, showcase these guys, potentially deal them at the deadline or deal them in the offseason. The other thing is, a lot of the time what they've been doing in their bullpen, they've just been throwing veterans at the problem. And so that's why you don't see as many guys that have been here for multiple seasons, is because they're on 1, maybe 2-year contracts. And I think what they're trying to get more toward is, okay, what if instead of going out and getting that $10 million bullpen arm, what if we just have that guy internally? And he's got options, and it allows us a little bit more flexibility. And I think they're trying to do that right now, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. It's risky. It potentially lowers the floor of your season quite a bit, but I think that might be at least the thought process behind why they're going about it the way that they are. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. If you guys have missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is one of the places where you can go to find it. That is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, and 101ESPN.com is another place where you can go to get those podcasts. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's been good to be back with you guys. Start of the new year, starting out fresh. Me and T-Bone have our New Year's resolutions in
Which you've
place.
already
Alex, I'm
failed.
wishing you a happy New Year as well.
Work out. What are we going to jam to, by the way?
Stupid topic.
We better figure that out.
I'm going to wear headphones. You can do your thing.
Wow, it already doesn't feel like a team effort.
I mean,
BK, help! And he's just over there
I'll
in
be
the
there
corner,
with ya,
jamming
but-
out to
Come
something
on, man.
from the
You're
early
doing
2000s.
lunges with 2-pound dumbbells. It's not that big of a deal. You don't
Still
need
get
music.
hurt.
I'll spot him. Just
How are you going to spot him doing lunges? I might just come and get popcorn and sit and watch. My New Year's resolution might be to sit and watch you two guys get injured.
Alex is also now a morning person, but it's specifically because he wants to see you fail. Yeah, that is what he's waking
You'll get
up to
just
do.
YouTube. Man, that'd be great YouTube content. You two doing it, I'll just do commentary.
All right, so we do have a college football game coming up later on this afternoon. It's a big one. It's Notre Dame versus Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That's going to start at 3 o'clock. Alex, who you got in this one?
I got Notre Dame. I don't trust the Georgia quarterback. I didn't think he looked that great in relief. You've got 2 weeks of this one. I are 2 weeks off prior since they played. I think Notre Dame wins this one easy.
That's where I'm at as well.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame. The Georgia quarterback's too much of a wild card for me to comfortably pick them. And I think Notre Dame, I said this earlier, I think they are a sleeping giant. People overlook them because of the loss at home to Northern Illinois.
If we've all got Notre Dame moving on, our final four will be Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame in that scenario. Who do you guys think will win it all after that? This could subjects change depending on what we see today with Notre Dame.
I think you'll have Ohio
That's today.
State, Penn State, and then I think Ohio State wins the national
Got the
championship.
same one.
I think it'll be Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I think Ohio State will win it all.
There we go. We've all got Ohio State winning it all. I
hate that.
We said going into it,
Randy's
Alex,
gonna
whoever
lose.
won
Oh,
Ohio
yeah.
State versus Oregon, we all felt like
That was the game.
That was the one that would end up going on to win the national title. All right. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Got plenty of Blues content once again coming up tomorrow. We'll have Mike McKenna in studio with us. Chris Kerber is going to join the show. And we've got a prospects guru coming on with us to break down what he's seen from Dalibor Dvorsky in the World Junior. So plenty to look forward to. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.